I'll be meeting with them. The Queen is unavailable.
Should we tell him to say hi?
We should send greetings.
Why not?
Okay.
Tell him to remind William that he has, ties with Kenya. Come back to Laikipia, William.
He found his wife here, didn't he?
Come back here.
Yeah, they were on holiday here.
He
That's how they met.
He dumped a girlfriend.
Yeah, and he first met Kate here while he was still with his former girlfriend. And then they went off and met in the other parts of the world. Imagine what she did.
The Standard today is heavy. It has many pages. Well, 39 pages and a lot of advertisements inside, no? But now, this is the headline. BBI secret plot for president to sack Ruto.
This BBI has been named
It has
many
everything.
things.
It has. BBI is everything, right? Is a sack of potatoes. So this story is alleging that there is a plot by MPs who have revealed a scheme to use constitutional reforms to grant president powers to fire his deputy, citing a raging feud between Uhuru and Ruto. And then, so basically the story is saying that one, there are some politicians who are pushing for a referendum by mid this year, that's June. Excuse me. Then what happens after that is BBI will come in with some constitutional reform, and this constitutional reform will allow a president to basically be able to read of his running mate once you get to power. Once you fired your deputy, then reform a government of national unity. So you can basically tell who are these who want this kind of arrangement. These are people who are not currently in government, who are seeing their way to come into government is by getting rid of one faction.
It's not even that, Eric. That is certainly one way of looking at it. But consider if indeed what is often rumored as having taken place in central Kenya, where the DP actually had an entire group of people whom he favored, more or less taking over from the old guard, people who had been there previously. This is politics. You imagine those people sat back and just sort of like said, well, okay, this has happened, it is okay.
We'll wait our turn.
Mungu atasaidia. No.
This is them fighting back.
No, that's the whole point. This is politics. Someone is gotten rid of, and they were quite happy with where they were. They're not going to sit back. They will fight. So what is happening is simply bringing to the fore what has been in existence since 2017, or even prior to that. It's now just coming to fruition, as we call it, full circle.
Yep.
Yes. It was planted. Now, it was always there. Now we are seeing the shoots, we are seeing things.
It is coming out.
And it will continue. And the issue of a referendum being used to bolster the president's power, this isn't new. In fact, this is mild. African presidents have been known to give themselves presidencies for life with referendums.
Yeah.
Yes. So
happens all the time.
It's not. It will not be surprising if this is actually true.
But there's some things over here. Having a referendum in July still, for me, is far-fetched. By the time we finish with these Tanga BBI meetings, because now BBI meetings have become the new Tanga. By the end of February, we'll have had now the meeting coming to Nairobi, right? That is end of February. Then, what point are we going to have a completion of BBI coming up with a
I think you're caught up in the cycle of doing things in Kenya. Everything is supposed to take forever. Remember, we raised this question here. If we looked at the UK, how long did it take for them to organize their referendum? And how long have they even taken to have an election?
The real snap quick.
Yes, exactly. They have a body that handles these things. It's a question of, is there money allocated? Let's move on. Simple. Yes. This tender business of somebody's printing this thing from South Africa. No. He's printing it from United Arab Emirates. No.
That is the UK. This is Kenya.
I'm trying to say that when you have an example of how something is done elsewhere, it means it can be done. That's really all I'm saying.
Things can be done, but remember that was not a constitutional referendum. For example, in the UK, it was just one issue being discussed. Live or stay, right? In the issue of a snap election is a snap election. In this particular case, you're saying right now, you're drafting you don't have a referendum law, so that will have to go through Parliament. This process of enacting a bill through Parliament has to go through its full course.
Eric,
a referendum bill
I'm
into
not
Parliament.
Saying that June is too soon. I'm merely saying it doesn't have to take forever. That's really all I'm saying.
Yes, I agree. It's possible to have a referendum this year. It's just I don't think it's possible to have a referendum by June this year. I don't think so. 4 months at the end of the. Now I'm calling them Tanga meetings. At the end of the new Tanga meetings cycle of Denise, that will be end of February, and then we get into. I don't see it happening. And remember, Parliament is coming out of recess around that time.
Right. In February, actually. We leave this the third week of February.
Please bear in mind that the fact that Parliament is in recess doesn't mean that they're not working.
The work cannot be done.
And it doesn't mean, in fact, is there a more perfect time for lobbying than now?
Lobbying, yes. But you see, the stage has to go through Parliament. It has to be. Bill has got to be published.
Do you see where I'm going with this thing?
I know. Bill has got to be published. Then it's tabled in Parliament. It goes to first reading. Then some time goes to second reading. Then it goes to
how long does that take? If it went through the normal processes, let's say due process was followed, how long would that take?
Not less than 4 months.
Good.
At least 6.
Good. Sure. In 6 months' time,
you have a referendum bill only. And then you start campaigning for the campaigns have started.
Please remember that the elections are in 2022, not 2021. So we have time.
No, we don't have time for a June referendum.
Well, let's see how things will unfold, because then again, you also, when push comes to shove, or when somebody really wants to get something done, you'll be surprised at the speed and alacrity with which they will actually get it done.
But also some things for political expediency, right? And would it be a good thing to allow a governor or a president to get rid of their running mate?
Why not?
Not running mate, of their deputy, right?
This is politics, man.
Anything can happen, bro.
No. Would it be a good thing? Why is it that we secured that in the Constitution? It's to ensure that you don't play those political games. Because when people are dangling that carrot of the deputy's position, it had a political impact. So this time now, if we say, let's go back to that stage where we say, I am the governor of Nairobi, I have been elected together with Nduoko, and then we get to office, and I just come up with a way to get rid of Nduoko. You are useful to me because I needed votes. I needed votes.
And how is that new in politics?
And then after that, I get rid of you.
Yes,
not new in politics. That's why it was being safeguarded. To safeguard it against the politics.
A great deal of what we have in our constitution, one could argue, was a reaction to what people had experienced and had gone through in the intervening years. Okay. Now, the thing about reaction, sometimes the reaction takes center stage without the aftermath and the consequences of that action being considered. When you enact something is when you see the consequences of it and you realize, perhaps we shouldn't have done this the way we thought.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about the implementation of the Constitution. There is a realization that this is what we wanted, but now that in theory it sounded really good now, but now that we have it in practice, this thing isn't working out quite as well as we thought.
For us. Not for people.
But that's what I am saying.
For us who are in power now.
It is always, look, is this not the same discussion we've had regarding Senate and the ability to actually rule on governors effectively when we consider that many senators will at some point or the other want to be governors? Are they going to set precedences that could harm them should they ever become governors? The answer is no.
No. And that's something that's very clear to everybody who's sitting on the periphery, that will not happen.
Actually, if you look at it the other way around with the governors, the reason why many of these governors are now the senators are seeking to become governors is after realization that the Senate does not really have powers.
Yes.
Initially, they were going for the Senate because they thought that's where the powers would be.
Yes.
And as the Senate Speaker was telling us, they'd now like to, and even the Senator for Narok came and told us, they'd like to bring in more powers to the Senate. So when you get to the Senate, you don't need to go back. You can start from the governor, being a governor, and then you rise to being a senator.
It'll be interesting to see.
A senior house.
How are they going to... Does a ship have reverse gears?
Yeah, a little too late at this point.
BBI, everything
BBI. Is hinged on BBI. With the BBI, it's the Fix It initiative, apparently.
Make the Senate the upper house, give it more powers, have it power to originate and pass bills.
The BBI, though, may not be able to save Kinjuri because he's being grilled over 1.8 billion maize payment. The anti-graft agency questions former agriculture cabinet secretary over cash paid to a company for supply of grain while he was at Kilimo House. So apparently, even when you're out, you're not quite out. According to what we hear, the money was withdrawn from the accounts of the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund at Central Bank last year and paid by the Agriculture Ministry to a private company as pending bill for the maize bought toward the 2016-2017 financial year. The procurement done during the tenure of William Bett as Agriculture Cabinet Secretary, but the payment was made while Kiunjuri was in charge at Kilimo House. The EACC opened investigations into the matter following claims officials at the ministry authorized the payment without prior approval at the Oversight Board and contrary to the Public Finance Management Regulations 2015.
Okay.
So there's still some heat there. It doesn't end with your sacking. They come for you even when
No,
they've got-
actually, the heat started.
The heat started with the sacking. So what we see, over 50 witnesses were questioned, and EACC has drafted 4 charges that those found to bear responsibility may face. The charges include fraudulent acquisition of public property against companies, abuse of office, with willful failure to adhere to procurement regulations, and willful failure of the PFMA and Regulations 2015. EAC detectives have identified the individuals likely to be charged if and when the Director of Public Prosecutions agrees with the recommendations. It has been established that 2 billion shillings was made, that a payment of 2 billion shillings was made to the Commodity House Limited on June 25th from the CBK Strategic Bank Reserve account. It's a mess, folks.
A total mess.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company called Commodity House Limited.
Mm-hmm.
It was paid for the supply of maize to the NCPB, 2 billion shillings.
Unauthorized
2 billion shillings, CT.
for the supply of maize. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I paid you 2 billion shillings. What would you do? Buy the Standard Group.
No, it's worth a lot more than that. Because
Substantial shares.
yeah, maybe, but I have far more pressing issues.
To do with Anona Media House right now.
Yes.
Like,
So, in other words, what CT is saying is that there are many things that that would mop up this 2 billion
2
shillings.
billion shillings.
Yeah.
There are places it could
there
go.
are places it
if
would go
if
real
there was
quick.
another 2 billion in addition to the other 2, then I'd consider your suggestion.
Yeah.
4 would do it nicely.
Yeah.
you can ensure that your money finds its way into the London Securities Exchange, and then you lend the government of Kenya through the bond. So the government pays you twice. Bring your own money, I give it back to you in the form of bond, and then you will be paying me. If they come for you, say, guys, you're the ones who have the money. If the asset recovery comes, tell them, no, I have lent the money
to the government.
to the government through the bond to you. So
one
you
could,
take it.
One could argue have returned it.
Yeah, I will return it.
Right? So, I mean, the axe is going to fall somewhere. And speaking of axes, maybe falling, we also have another man who is at the gallows. And Waitito seeks to block testimony from 2 county employees, obviously, because whatever they're going to say has a likelihood to implicate him negative, of course. A firm that had got 500 million. Here's another number that we don't even call it. It's like 500 shillings, right? A firm that got a 500 million shilling tender in Kiambu County used a forged letter alleged to be from a Chinese company. Testimony Limited, interestingly enough, used the forged introductory letter from a Chinese construction firm, China Wu Yi Company Limited, cooked its employees' resumes to get a road construction tender, according to court papers filed in the case against Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waitito. The accusations were contained in documents filed in court by the EACC seeking to recover over 170 million shillings from Waitito. In the suit, EACC wants Waitito, alongside Testimony Limited, ordered to pay back the money, saying they were proceeds of crime. Now, 2 county employees who could have necessary testimony are due to appear in court today, and Waitito is seeking to have their testimony blocked.
Okay. Okay. Good luck with that.
I know, right? So
The Nation. How Moses Kuria's relatives got CDF tenders. That's in page 6. And it claims that companies owned by close relatives and friends of Gatondo South MP Moses Kuria received tenders worth millions of shillings from his CDF kitty. during his first term as MP. An investigation by this newspaper shows that most of the companies were formed between 2014 and 2015, just after Kuria was elected as MP and proceeded to win the tenders. In total, 14 companies made at least 100 million shillings from 31 tenders, funded by either the CDF or jointly with the Ministry of Education. The tenders were mostly for building schools. The constituency has received 365 million shillings between 2014 and 2018. When the contracts in question were issued.
Right.
Do you think
anything of that is new?
Yes. Do you think that Waititu is doing something that other governors are not doing?
The
answer is no.
This is actually the case of Moses Kuria, the MP for CDF. Even in that case, 290 constituencies each receive 100 million shillings every year for CDF. Do you think that all operations are above board?
Let me ask, are those schools actually built? That's the question I want to ask. Are they built? Because if they are built...
If the schools do exist,
then that's one issue sorted out. Then you can come to the matter of procurement.
Yes.
And then the question is he actually bad? Is he breaking the law if these are his relatives and they actually qualify?
And he is not. He doesn't sit in the committee.
Yes.
That's what he'll argue. I don't sit in the committee. I'm merely a patron.
Even if he sits on the committee, the question I'm asking it...
If he sits in the committee, yes, there'd be an issue of conflict of interest.
What is the conflict? It is not him who's gotten the tenders. You see, if you then say that because it's on that particular committee, if he were to sit on it, his relatives should be barred from it, then you're being biased against people who are actually potential investors or people who rightfully should actually be given work.
And of course, people in Gatondo South are likely to be his relatives.
That's where he comes from.
Point. Right.
Yes.
People are likely...
from Gatundu South are likely
yes,
to...
He doesn't come from South Tetu. He actually comes from Gatundu. So this is the point I'm trying to...
So what are you telling us really?
Yes.
Yeah. So there we go.
I think the issue then would be the process, the procedure.
It has to be procedure because this issue of not employing someone because they're someone's relative, look, I know it points to nepotism, but not necessarily so.
Yeah.
Because you're then going to say that if someone is qualified and by virtue of their being someone's relative, they shouldn't be employed or they shouldn't get a tender. No. No. That reasoning is not sound.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Because if someone actually
because that's
wanted...
discrimination. You're discriminating against somebody who's
by virtue of
qualified.
the fact that they're someone's relative.
Yeah.
Right.
If someone wanted to be fraudulent, you think they'd be stupid enough to give it only to their relatives?
family members.
Don't they know other people they could give it to?
Of course.
In fact,
Yes.
they would want to do it with people who they are not related to so as to get the harm away from themselves as far as possible. So, I mean, that would be the logical conclusion. Now, speaking of conclusions and stuff that we saw yesterday, Uhuru's hand has now been dragged into the varsity leadership row, as the University of Nairobi plunged into deeper crisis after a court reversed a directive annulling appointment of a vice-chancellor. The president was dragged into the dispute. There are 4 gentlemen now, and they are the key players. Professor Stephen Kiama, appointment revoked. Professor Isaac Mbeche, appointed acting VC. Professor George Magoha revoked the appointment. President Uhuru Kenyatta now has been dragged into the fray. And it seems that, as what we hear is being reported, is that he definitely has something to do with it, being the president, of course. And it's basically telling us that Magoha, who is, of course, the CS Education, says that he acted on the president's orders. The raging drama over the appointment of vice-chancellor at the University of Nairobi worsened yesterday after the courts reversed a directive annulling the installment of Professor Stephen Kiama, even as Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha stood his ground invoking Uhuru Kenyatta's name. Employment and Labour Regulations Court Judge Maureen Onyango suspended the order issued by Professor Magoha on Friday, which stopped Professor Kiama from taking over as the vice-chancellor. Now, Onyango also revoked Magoha's appointment of Professor Isaac Mbeche as the acting VC of the country's oldest and largest institution of higher learning. It was a day of high drama as Professor Magoha admitted that he had acted on orders from State House, while the PSC, which had conducted the interviews, ranked Professor Kiama tops, also defended its position. So it was back and forth, and I think at some point
State
Magoha
House doesn't necessarily mean the president, please.
But Magoha said, I acted on president orders. He said it.
Appointing authority.
Appointing authority.
That's what he said.
Yes.
He mentioned president.
Yes, he
Appointing
said, I
authority.
acted on the president's orders.
Basically, what he's saying is, so these guys, and he actually said, consultation does not mean information. Consultation means that you, when he had a meeting with them on the 3rd, and they presented the names, he said, all right, let me consult. Right? So consultation for him meant that he's escalating the matter upwards to his appointing authority, to his boss. Now, he has not even secured an appointment with his boss. These guys have announced.
Now, you see, this explanation is what we're asking for yesterday. We're saying, okay, but
What's the issue?
yes.
What's the issue here?
Yes, because all you've done is this. Now explain. There must be something behind this. Okay, now we hear what is behind it. So, from this, am I to understand that any such appointment in the country, the president must give a nod?
Listen to this. I met them on January 3rd. This is Magoha. And the council presented the candidates they recommended. And I told them, well, I will consult. I consult upwards and consultation is ongoing. But they went ahead and appointed a VC. Then the owner of the process asked me about it. I cannot appoint someone without consultation. I take orders from my appointing authority. And this is what he said. He added a new twist to the saga when he suggested that the directive to appoint Professor Kiama may have come from outside the hiring process.
Some games being played.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
On both sides.
It's just
This
that
is some high-class musical chairs here.
Yeah,
So,
it's
I mean...
it's out in the open, yes, but it isn't the first time.
Yep.
Appointments of people who had bodies such as this one or parastatals, they've been fraught with this sort of musical chairs
Of
before.
course.
Yes.
And the University of Nairobi is no small organization.
No,
This
it
is an
isn't.
organization
No,
with revenues worth over 13 billion a year.
A year.
Right? Just direct revenues and then the money that it gets from the government. This is one that is as big as the county government of Nairobi. Bigger than some counties.
It is bigger, but they have a small problem right now. Their liabilities actually exceed what is considered their net worth currently. This is a problem that they have.
They have issues, eh?
They have issues. Yes, they can't seem to be able to get out of this debt rut that they're in. And of course, the question that hangs over this whole issue is how on earth did they get into such debt?
In the first place.
Yes, those who write these stories tell you that the rot started setting in once Magoha left. Remember, Magoha is just one VC. This guy is just one VC away from Magoha's tenure. Okay? So, the question that I would ask is, okay, there was Mbithi. You know, when you inherit a position, you inherit other things with it.
Yep.
He had one term. So are they telling us that in the one term Mbithi was in power, he set this rot in motion? I don't think so.
No, of course, this is something
It doesn't
that
work
he
like
Started
inherited
some
too.
time earlier.
Yes. These things, 5 years, too short a time to get inside. Certain decisions had been made.
However,
Yes.
it's actually 5 years is enough for you to mess up an issue.
5 years.
So you've taken up a loan and there's supposed to be proper management of how you repay those loans. But if the person who comes in does not manage the repayment of those loans, you get into problems.
Very true. Very true. There's always a lot that one doesn't quite see. Well, this is one of those cases.
One of those.
But now there's something interesting. Okay, in business, we are being told Treasury pays 30 billion owed to suppliers. But then, this against a backdrop. There's a but then, of course.
Always.
There's, yes, where in 2018, the Auditor General told us that as far as we're concerned, county governments owed suppliers more than 225 billion, dating back several years.
Good grief.
How's that for drama? So what they've done is paid something like just about 10%. Well, actually, let's give them 15%.
So
From the
15%.
several years debt,
It's
10% of it
15,
has been paid.
no. Let's
We have a long way to go.
Yes, 15% has been paid.
Of the several years of debt.
Yes, if they paid 30 billion and in 2018 we're told they owed 225 billion.
Good Lord.
Just a little maths. Okay, let's give them 20%.
Let's be generous.
When will it ever end?
yes, even if we gave them 30%, it's 70 is still outstanding.
Good grief.
An update from what we discussed yesterday. Babu Owino was presented in court yesterday. He was charged. Then he was denied bail.
For at least the next
So
7
this morning
days.
he's having breakfast at the industrial area remand prison.
You make it sound so
Yep.
posh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you're having a breakfast, please remember Babu Owino. He's having his breakfast at the industrial area remand prison for the next 7 days until the 27th when he goes back to court. Now, of course, what is happening now is people are placing bets, and I'd like to encourage you guys also to place bets. How long it will take before Babu Owino falls sick and finds his way into a private wing of a hospital.
Oh, okay. That's where we are.
There's that little detail.
The diet may not be that welcoming, so it's possible that this will happen really quick.
No, the diet in such establishments can best be referred to as robust.
But also the police took action on that, the issue that we were discussing yesterday. People who elected legislators, VIPs, and how they misbehave. So the police have said they're withdrawing security detail for anybody who is a sitting member of parliament who has a case pending in court.
I thought they would need security even more now.
Seriously.
You are the one who's facing problems. We don't need to, we are not going to associate our officers with you. You go sort yourselves out and then you come back. So the MPs who have been affected, Babu Owino, Aisha Jumwa, Moses Kuria, Kimani Ngunjiri, all those MPs who have cases.
Aisha Jumwa, there was a death relating to her activities. Is
Yes.
that not so?
Yes, a gun went off,
A
said to
gun
have
went
been
off
hers,
and somebody also went off.
and
Yeah.
somebody went off, yes.
Okay. Babu Owino, somebody miraculously did not go,
Go
off.
off.
Yeah, but a gun went off.
A gun went off, his.
Yes.
And Gujiri, Kimani,
Kimani Ngunjiri, I'm not sure the case that he's facing.
that's what I'm wondering. And Kuria,
Kuria, we know. He already
what
has a
he
case.
did was shoot his mouth. But pun intended, of course.
Oh my God.
Oh, Kimani Ngunjiri actually has just been summoned by the police, right?
Yes.
Because of utterances that he made last week that were deemed critical of the president.
Oh, okay.
So for that reason, therefore,
So in this instance, all you're saying is some shooting has been is
Yes.
involved in all these cases. Okay, whether it's a gun or the mouth,
gun, mouth,
Both-
whatever, something has been
they'll
shot.
both get you into trouble. Yes.
28 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads and then we continue the conversation.
Yes.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Ice FM.
Traffic.
All right, so if you haven't left Mombasa Road, you're going to get stuck because there's a build-up already at Syokimau, and what we saw yesterday is likely to repeat itself today. It's already mad traffic on Mombasa Road this Tuesday morning. Let's look around the city. Sticker Road already, there is traffic as early as 10 minutes past 6. If you did make it off the road, there's a problem. Muthaiga to Pangani, there already it has built up quite some. Looking at other parts of the city today, Ngong Road not so bad right now as you approach the City Mortuary roundabout, and also Langata Road has not built up like we saw yesterday, but it's likely to actually build up after a short period of time. So looking around the city, nothing too alarming right now except for what we would expect. Let's see what it looks like in a short while, but for now, let us know what you do see. Spice FM KE. If you see something that we should know about, or give us a call on 0719 012 600. Let's see how we're going to make it this Tuesday morning.
96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation in the room. My name is Eric Latif. We have Ndu Oko and CT Muga. In the conversation this morning, of course, we are taking a look at what's the big news of the day. We'll have a conversation as well on the LAPSET project. We'll have a conversation on what is due to happen in the Senate this morning. Not this morning, this afternoon rather, where the Senate has been reconvened to discuss the small matter of the impeachment of the governor of Kiambu. We'll also be discussing the small matter of one of Africa's richest persons. And this is the lady from Angola, Isabel dos Santos. So first, let's take a look at the big news of the day, the hot topic. Inside Kenya's 2.7 trillion budget proposals. Now, this is what the Treasury CS, of course, Ukur Yatani has already presented, that the budget estimates for the next financial year. This is how budgeting happens. This, today being a financial Tuesday, this is what has been given the kipaumbele, so to speak, on the financial Tuesday.
Kipao.
Kipaumbele.
Oh.
Right.
Qu'est-ce que c'est
Also
là?
covered in page 8 of this city. Right?
Yes.
Showdown looms as MPs and judges cash cut. So the first time in a long time, the Treasury is presenting next year's budget. It's going to be less than this year's budget.
Yes, and they are clear. They're even giving estimates of what they hope to reduce it by. They're saying that the judiciary, let's start with the judiciary, budget 19 million will be reduced to 13.6 billion. If you do the maths, you know that it's going to be reduced by 5.4 billion. Steady amount. But they're not the only ones. The executive has been allocated 1.8 trillion, and there's a cut of 133 billion. Now let's move to Parliament. Parliament has been allocated 36 billion, 3 billion less, and the list goes on. Now,
So the legislature and the judiciary are getting 3 billion less.
Yes. I've given that as an example. Every other department of this government, every other ministry will have a cut. Why have I pointed those things? Because those are three areas that people are about to kick a fuss about and say the judiciary will definitely kick a fuss.
Yep.
They will talk about delivering justice. They'll talk about, but you know, if we are to tighten the belts, everybody has to tighten the belts. The Mwananchi has been tightening his belt and bearing the burden of this thing by paying their taxes and more taxes and then some. It's only fair that this happens. Kudos to Yatani. Let everybody tighten their belt.
With the cabinet reshuffle that came last week, I said, look, everybody is going to show something or show some kind of push for making sure that
Some
they are,
teeth.
yeah, everybody's gonna gnash something to show that they're really interested in moving this country forward. Now, this may be seen as okay, moving this country forward, but we're cutting expenses. Well, that's one way that you're going to be able to show how we can actually develop. It is clear that the money being spent, Kenya just does not have. And the only way to be able to do that, my dear, is to cut your coat according to your cloth. In this case, there's no money, right? And to say that we cannot continue spending and then getting loans to cover costs that are absolutely unnecessary. And here you see the guy, he's been appointed and he says, you know what, this is where we're going to go with this. Right now, even before we get into a new financial year, with what we have left to spend, regardless of the fact that it has been allocated, we need to stop it.
You know, our situation
in order
is
to
even
keep
more
afloat.
interesting, Ndu, because one, even if we borrowed and actually did what we said we were going to do with the money, then this dire situation to find ourselves in would not exist.
Would not
But
exist.
we don't. We just seem to be throwing money at projects that never took place, don't exist, and that seems to be a national pastime.
Right.
And every amount you read about is in the tens and twenties and hundreds of billions. These are colossal amounts.
A lot of money.
Yes. Monies that could run several departments, several ministries, and they've just gone into, well, probably not really smoke, into thin air. Well, not thin air. Previously thin pockets and now bulging pockets. But they've gone. So it isn't as though we do not know. Now, what it also points out to is that there's been wastage. We say we need all these things. Remember, we've posed this question before. The judiciary complains a great deal, and they probably are right. But can they please tell us what it is, the many things they've done with the monies they get? They'll say they've built more courts. That story is old, is as old as time. What else? What else?
What else?
What else? Because this question has been asked before. Yes, they've built more courts. They have employed more magistrates and judges. We understand. But has this backlog that we speak of, can they give us a report of how the backlogs that have previously existed, how they've been shortened? There was a report a while back of how this has worked out. But when one looks, well, realistically, at, say, some of the big cases we have, those things seem to be moving at a snail's pace. So if the optics are to be considered, and you're telling me that they've improved their service, I would ask, please tell me exactly what you mean by this. this money that you've been getting all along before these cuts, you said certain things were supposed to happen. Explain to me how this thing manifests into the day-to-day running of the affairs of this country, and how the judicial services that the Mwananchi expects to receive has been hazed. Just something like that. Because if I can't feel it, it doesn't matter what you tell me. I will not believe what you're telling me.
There you go. And even for me, when I look at just this report that we saw yesterday coming out of the IMF of the 500 projects and the 1 trillion shillings that Kenya needs to complete these projects, that alone,
if we must complete them.
But why start something that then we're not able to complete? And we're not talking about procrastination here. We're not talking about lack of funding, because when these projects were launched, or when they were initiated, there was budget for them, right? It behoves any government to. Can we get to the point where we say, let us complete the ones that we have? Look, you know what? If those 500 projects were completed by the end of this current administration's tenure, I would be very happy. And I would say absolutely, then this, at least we can see. Finish them. Let them be finished. And in terms of backlog, let's not leave any backlog. 500 projects, 180 coming out of one county. And we already know that, for example. Those can we complete? Because we're looking for money to start new projects, money to increase new and develop new infrastructure. Whereas the ones that we started literally 7 years ago have not been finished.
You know, one of the things that I think stands out in my mind with regards to this is that this is not a situation we have not been in before. We have. And it's not a situation we've gotten out of before. We have. And we saw how the government that got out of it did. One, first of all, they put a halt to any of these mega projects that people talk about. Halt. Yani, fine, we understand. Halt. We're not doing anything of that sort. So let's get this collection of our money together and figure out how we can collect. Let's focus on the priorities. Let's stop trying to do everything at the same time.
At the same time.
Exactly.
Because clearly there's a mess here.
Yeah.
Stop this, stop this, stop this. All right. What do we need to move the country? The projects aren't complete. Is the country functioning? Yes. Let them continue. In fact, now, forget things. Just freeze them. Now, let's focus on this. And what did they do? They actually went about collecting money. And they did. And then sat back and said, okay, what is it that we wanted to do? And then began doing it. And these things got done. They said they were going to do this, we saw it getting done. They said they were going to do this, we saw it getting done. The improvements in every sector of the government were so vast that you actually felt, you mean to tell me all these things?
And it was possible.
All along.
All
along they were possible.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, you cannot tell us that it is not possible because we've seen it done. It wasn't magic.
When I look at the budget cuts, though, and I mean the proposed budget for the next financial year, I'm seeing education is going to get the lion's share once again. Of course, it always does. 507 billion shillings. Then energy, infrastructure, and ICT, 404 billion shillings. Public administration and international relations, 259 billion. This is maintaining our embassies abroad. Okay. Governance, justice, law and order. This is where now, of course, Parliament and the judiciary comes in. 195B. National security, 149. Health, one of the big four. This is where it comes in. 112 billion. Environment protection, water and natural resources, 96 billion. Social protection, 67 billion. And then agriculture, rural and urban development, 48 billion.
What is social protection?
Social protection, I do not know exactly, but I think one of those things includes, the cash handouts that are given to the vulnerables.
Cash handouts that they report are given to vulnerables.
Well, the report because we've had many cases where...
And then management of those things like the Child Welfare Society of Kenya that we discussed the other day.
Yeah.
Those are social protection causes.
Did that individual who headed that, did that person get jailed?
Gone to court, courts
it's still in
restated.
court.
It's a long process, that one.
Nothing long about that.
My issue here is one of the main big four, right? Agriculture, food security. Agriculture, rural and urban development is getting 48 billion shillings. If you look at that vis-a-vis 507 billion shillings that goes into education, what percentage of that?
We're looking about 10%. What did you say, 48 and then 500?
And 507.
Yeah, it's almost 10%.
Less than 10%.
Less than 10% of the budget.
Less than 10% of what education gets.
Yeah, less than 10% of the education budget.
Is what is going to food security, agriculture. One of the big four. Less than 10% of what is 48 billion out of was it 2.7 trillion budget. Now look at it that way.
You're
So
looking
what-
at about
When we say we're focusing on the big four,
5% less
health
than
is
five.
getting 112. Food security is getting 48 billion, and this is not just food security alone, because there's the rural and urban development aspect as well.
What is that again?
It may have some infrastructural issues. Some infrastructure would go into it, right?
I thought that falls under roads.
There you go. There's energy infrastructure and ICT. So rural and urban development, I'm not sure exactly what this is. It's getting 48 billion shillings. Where is manufacturing?
doesn't show up.
Maybe under social protection.
Maybe. Because it
You gotta
cannot be
put something
it
under
can
that.
be environment protection, water and natural resources.
No, not there.
It could only be
It's not
energy, infrastructure and ICT.
Okay,
Could be
possibly.
something there, right? Big four, and the focus that we're giving the big four, and then how much we fund. Like how much we fund our food production is
I think
always a very big issue.
Right,
What-
it needs to be looked at in terms of then how you're able to protect food sources.
Yes, but what you
in
will,
relation to health.
What you will find in many cases, it's like with health, a lot of our health initiatives are also assisted. We get
Funding.
Yes,
Yes.
we do. Agriculture also receives some sort of funding, but what is clear is you cannot have food security as a key agenda for the country and then allocate this paltry amount to
All the time. In fact, food
can't.
security, agriculture has been getting a reduced budgetary allocation year on year.
Yes.
If you look at the current financial year vis-a-vis the previous financial year, agriculture was receiving less, and yet we have signed up, these declarations. Was it Maputo? Yes, Maputo declaration on increasing our budgetary allocation to 15%. Where are we? This is nowhere close to 15%. So we're talking about how much are we gonna spend on the big four? How much are we allocating on the big four? Are we spending money where we should be spending money?
If we start from the point of view that people who prepare these budgets actually think them through and that they know what they're doing, we would need one of them to come here to actually explain to us the rationale behind this sort of allocation.
Yeah.
Because clearly this allocation of agriculture seems a little off, given that the vast majority of the population of this country still actually exists on subsistence farming. And that same subsistence farming is what is actually used to educate children. Everything that has to do with the livelihood of those families revolves around this around this subsistence farming. So you actually do not see a government focus on this, the mainstay of very many people in this particular country. You actually don't see it. And also remember, if you're talking about manufacturing, agriculture plays a very pivotal role in that particular process, because that's where you get the raw materials, some of the raw materials that are mandatory for manufacturing.
In fact, it has been argued that one of the key pillars of driving our manufacturing sector to grow is just looking at the food production, at agriculture.
And also,
You have, when you come up with those factories for value addition, that is where
and
our
also
manufacturing
it
grows.
is also fundamental in creating jobs. Because if you encourage the agricultural sector and clearly there's money to be paid, then what you're saying is that you're encouraging more people to get involved in that process. That's employment,
Yeah.
because there's work being created. And if the manufacturing sector has a great uptake of what is being produced at that basic level, again, you're creating further employment. Yes.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We're taking a look at the big story this morning, which is Okurian Atani's 2.74 trillion shilling budget plan for the next financial year. And you're looking at, this is actually going to be a reduced budget for the first time in a long time. The government is going to be spending less in the next financial year than it's doing in this particular financial year. We're looking at what's happening there.
96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 10 to 7. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The live streams are up. Facebook, Spice FM KE. YouTube, Spice FM KE. As well as our Twitter handle at Spice FM KE. We're live streaming there, audio visual. And then, of course, you can log on to our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Nduoko. Well, we are also discussing what Ukur Yatani has done. He's presented his budget estimates for the next financial year. It's going to be a budget less by what? How many billions less? 2.74 trillion. That's less than the current financial year's budget. Well, of course, this is going to be a big one, right? 2.85 trillion is the current financial year's budget. So, of course, this comes in with a lot of implications. This means budget cuts, and we've seen a budget cut of 3 billion or 5 billion. 5 billion to the to Parliament, and to the judiciary. Some 133 billion shillings reduction in allocation to the national executive.
There's some arithmetic that has been presented to us by Mr. Maraga, the Chief Justice, says that one of the things that many Kenyans, because of the disputes they have an average of 400,000 cases that are filed every year. But they say their capacity can only manage 300,000 every year. I want to pause there and ask, the filing of cases involves payments of money. Have I got this wrong? Is there any case that goes to court that doesn't involve money?
Money to who?
Well, when you file a case, you pay. Or is it free?
When the government is filing cases,
No.
Pay.
If I take a case to court and I want to file a case, don't I pay my lawyer?
In civil cases?
No. Any case that goes
you
to
pay
court.
your lawyer,
You
yes.
pay your lawyer, yes.
Yes, and when he files the case in court, is it free or does he also pay the court?
I'm not sure.
There are court charges. There's a point I'm getting to here. More cases mean more money for the judiciary.
You should be raising more money.
Oh, but they do raise more money.
Yeah, the money is not theirs, though. It goes to the National Treasury.
To the National Treasury.
There's a point, again, I am getting to.
Yes,
here.
the money is available.
I am saying that they also do raise money.
They are revenue generating.
Yes, they are a revenue generating institution. How much money do they generate in a year?
Because if we're looking at an excess of because we're not talking about cases that have been heard. They've raised 500,000 cases, right? Is that not what we've just
said? 400,000.
400,000. They only have a capacity to deal with 300,000. But these 400,000, we're going to assume that revenue has been generated from the filing of these cases. So in terms of what has then gone to the National Treasury that has come specifically out of this institution, money has been raised.
Yes, and also remember there are other judicial avenues where issues can be resolved. Arbitration, mediation. If it's 100,000, how many mediators do we have in the country? How many arbitrators do we have? Why can't you farm out these 100,000? There's a point I'm trying to make here. There's an argument that the judiciary presents every year, and it's the same argument. We understand it. Should they not come up with a solution? Because if it's a problem that you keep having every year and you haven't found a solution to it, because this money isn't going to increase, you're being told. Instead of telling us the obvious, that the money will not be enough, if it's cut, should you not find a way of ensuring that you actually carry out your duties? Because you do have a duty to perform.
That's what they discussed. Remember the committee that they have formed? It's a committee that brings in together the judiciary.
Is it a task force or is it a committee?
Not a task force. It's actually a body that brings in together the judiciary, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Attorney General's Office, Solicitor General, Law Society of Kenya, the Prison Service, EACC, all those bodies that are involved in the judicial system actually have a sort of a body that
there's an umbrella body.
There's an umbrella body that
they do.
They discuss these matters of how can we ensure more efficiency.
And after discussing it, what have they come up with?
I think that's why they've come up with all those reports and some actions in terms of where do we need to focus our attention on, increasing the number of judges, increasing the number of courts, while spreading them further, looking at pushing for alternative dispute resolution mechanisms so that people can start seeing as, ADRMs are proper avenues to follow.
So what we're saying here, we have a situation where things are being done, but there's a poor reporting and communication system.
Yeah.
We are not clearly being told what is actually happening, and yet something positive may be happening. Is that what we're seeing here?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of positives may be happening. The parliament, however, what do?
I mean, apart from sitting and talking.
Well, here we have.
And passing laws.
We talked about the several meetings
But
that
that's-
take place. A lot of the expenditure within Parliament.
And then there's oversight. They have all these bodies within Parliament.
which requires sitting, and that's what we're looking. A lot of the expenditure.
Not the amount of sitting that they have, man.
But what I'm saying is, a lot of the expenditure within Parliament comes from these sittings. A lot of the money that is
So it's
actually
recurrent.
spent
It's basically
is,
just
is
paying
recurrent expenditure.
salaries
It's
and
paying
allowances.
salaries and allowances. And we heard it. I can't remember the gentleman that sat here and told us that a lot of the money that is spent, and they actually need to figure out a way to deal with that, is that it comes from this, and there needs to be a way to curb this. I mean, it only makes sense that if you're going to meet 3 times a week and the resolutions that you come up with are not earth shattering in any way, then cut it down to once a week. And this is what we see. This is what we see, that it's clear that a lot of money can be raised and mopped up from the excesses that are not necessary. Unnecessary excesses is what we see, unfortunately.
So what's the likely impact? Where I'm heading with this is, what's the likely impact of having a budget cut for Parliament? Are we going to have less laws? Are we going to have MPs going on a go slow?
This is what I do see. That's what I do see, is that there will be hue and cry. And then how do you then expect us to do our job of oversight or legislating when you've cut down the time that we would essentially use to do this? And we know for a fact that a lot of times, if this was the case, I think we would have a full house every time these meetings were called upon. But it's clear that not every time a meeting or committee sits, that every single member of the committee is then available or present.
Are we likely to have, because now you're having some serious budget cuts to the legislature and serious budget cuts to the judiciary, and not as serious budget cuts to the executive, an executive running amok without checks and balances? Because then you're saying that you have incapacitated the legislature, you have incapacitated the judiciary. So, oversight of the executive, what happens to that? Are we likely to have an impact of that, of seeing, MPs saying, we'd like to have an oversight?
Are you
to
suggesting
play
that
our
the
oversight role
executive
better?
is using this budget as a tool to bring the judiciary to heel?
Conspiratorially.
And even Parliament to heel? Because they can, actually.
Conspiratorially.
It can be used as a way to make
It's a perspective that I think makes sense. Yes.
If you look at what the Senate Speaker was telling us, so the Senate Speaker was telling us the Senate does not have proper resources to conduct oversight of the 47 counties, right? They don't have money to actually go to the counties and set up offices as senators. They don't have money to do a lot of work that they ought to do as senators, going around and oversighting the counties. So now you've cut budgets. Now you're also talking about money going to the National Assembly.
Well, the next thing we're going to ask
Committee
is,
on
do we
Budget
need
and
a Senate?
Appropriation will tell us, yes.
That will be the next question. Is it absolutely necessary then for us to have a Senate?
Yes.
Are you guys, what do you do anyway?
Yes.
That'll
I mean,
then
apart
be the
from
question.
going to
Looking
that,
in the last one financial year, what have you done?
Simple question.
And they start telling us, we didn't have money.
Were you paid salaries? Yes. Okay.
Did the country grind to a halt?
No. So we really need you.
Even in the worst of times, you didn't help us. So come and go and sit down.
Yes.
Essentially, is what you.
Why didn't you guys resign and vie for some MP's job somewhere?
Like the Hindu says, come and go and sit down.
Yeah.
Yes. Essentially, hey, come, go,
Sit down.
You've gone. You need to sit down to just contemplate what has just happened.
to you.
Budget cuts, serious budget cuts. Let's see also whether this kind of serious budget cuts are going to go into what the wastage areas are. The small things that we think of. How many vehicles do we have? How are we feeling? How many vehicles do we need? How many offices do we have? How many offices do we need? Do we need to take up an entire building and pay rent for an entire building? For all the state agencies. If you think about all the commissions and state agencies that are paying rent across the country, even just Nairobi alone, why not just put up all of them in KICC?
In one building.
Negotiate with KICC. KICC is having financial problems. Fill it up with all government agencies sitting there. What is the impact of this?
Well, of course, there's a special treatment with which legislators feel they should be handled.
Legislators have a swanky new building.
Have they moved in?
They have a swanky. I don't think they've moved in. They'll have a serious. In fact, I think they'll have 2 months of celebrations, launching of Parliament buildings or Parliament offices. If you haven't seen that yet, you just know that it's not officially, they haven't officially moved
Is it,
in. But
is
of
it
course
going to
they're moved in.
improve service delivery?
Yeah.
How?
When MPs have a gym on the 7th floor and a cafeteria on 19th floor and big meeting rooms on 2nd floor, that, you're reducing their movement.
Reducing the movement?
Yeah, so you have them for longer. They focus. It's about productivity, CT. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be taking a look at the big story.
You come up with.
Inside the attorney's 2.7 trillion shilling budget proposal is what we are discussing. Of course, let's continue the conversation. Remember to join us on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Good morning, 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so this week something is definitely going on because the amount of traffic that we're seeing around the city in Nairobi specifically, and also news reports that we are getting from different parts of the country as well, from Mombasa to Kisumu, is not a joke. Mombasa Road already, like we said, the traffic is at the door basically, and whatever door you open, the traffic is there. Wayaki Way all the way up from Kangemi all the way down to the Westlands roundabout and then on to Chiromo. There's definitely traffic there. An hour from Utali to the Muthaiga stretch is what is taking some people this morning. Langata Road traffic begins all the way at KWS just before the barracks, and it's going to be quite a morning if what we're looking at is any indication to go by. Limuru Road inbound from Muthaiga, the drift is moving very slowly. People are moving at a speed of almost zero from what we hear. Langata Road, of course, we've said where the traffic starts. Thika Road also getting into the CBD, not so easy. So it's going to be a trying morning of your patience today. You're going to have to be patient. Let us know if you found an alternate route. We'll let you know what the southern and eastern bypasses look like in a short while. Spice FM KE 0719 012 600 is the number to call. Let us know what you see and keep people moving this Tuesday.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We are live streaming on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and also on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Catch us on our terrestrial channels, 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. Call a friend to tell a friend that we are live. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting every morning, every weekday in the morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., where we have serious conversations about big issues affecting the country and the world in general. So, we know that there are some 3 governors who are facing cases in court relating to corruption. There's one who's facing another case that's relating to the death of somebody. But this one, we're talking about those that are facing cases in court related to corruption. That's the governor of Kiambu, Ferdinand Waitito, governor of Samburu, Lenore Kulal, and governor of Nairobi, Mike Mbuvi Sonko. Now, those 3 governors have, by order of the court, been asked to stay away from office. There has been confusion, of course, on what does that mean, staying away from office. We have seen the impact of that. The deputy governors of Kiambu and Samburu have been the ones who are acting as governors presently, and to some extent. The Nairobi does not have a governor, so we have the Nairobi Rehabilitation Committee that has been asked by the County Assembly of Nairobi to come and help the county executive to run the affairs of the county. We don't know how far they have gone with that. However, we also know from the ruling by the Court of Appeal just the other day that these governors have not been suspended. These governors have not been removed from office. They still are the governors of those 3 counties. They still are getting full salary. They are the ones who are supposed to run the office. The deputies do not have certain powers. The deputies don't have powers to appoint, to dismiss, to transfer. The deputies don't have powers to sign agreements or to sign laws. The impact of this is we have some lack of clarity. And this morning I want to say that the lack of clarity on this matter is presenting in Kiambu, Samburu and Nairobi is denying the residents of these 3 counties crucial services. And it's about time that the government actually decided what they want to let us know. Who has the powers to do what, and how should the people of these 3 counties get their services? I'm going to give you the examples. Example of Kiambu. In Kiambu County, we do not have a county public service board. Only 2 out of 7 members are in office. The constitution says that we must have at least 7 members of the county public service board. Their tenure expired last year. 5 of the board members, only 2 are in office. Those 2 do not form quorum, so they're not even sitting. They cannot do anything. When you don't have a county public service board, it means that people who need to be employed by the county executive are not getting employed. People who are on contract and their contracts need to be renewed are not getting their contract renewed. Kiambu, for example, was on the point of hiring 800 new nurses, having to renew the contracts of 200 casual workers. All these people are not serving the residents of Kiambu because we don't have a board that can appoint them. Also, this means that because there's no governor, nobody can actually nominate and appoint new members into this county public service board. So, because Waitito is not being allowed to run the affairs of this county, he cannot appoint. The deputy governor has no powers to appoint. We have 4 chief officers who are not in office in Kiambu. And these are the departments of the roads, ICT, urban development, public service. These chief officers are like principal secretaries. They are the accounting officers. What this means is that these 4 departments, roads, ICT, urban development, and public service, don't have somebody to sign on expenditures. It means that they are basically grinding to a halt. And the deputy governor does not have powers to appoint new chief officers, does not even have power to delegate authority from another chief officer and tell them you can serve as the acting chief officer for roads, does not have the power to transfer a chief officer from one department to another. The deputy governor cannot appoint or transfer even a CEC. So, the way we saw the County Assembly of Kiambu attempting to get rid of one CEC for information, this was the impeachment of one chief executive, committee, what's it, CEC is? County Executive Committee. Yeah, County Executive Committee member.
Meaning the minister.
Meaning the minister. If the County Assembly today decided to get rid of all 10 ministers in Kiambu County, they'd render the county executive of Kiambu completely irrelevant. The deputy governor cannot run the affairs of the county alone. He is supposed to run the affairs of the county with the county executive committee. The fact that we do not have clarity on who has the powers now in the absence of a governor is actually making that people of these 3 counties suffer. They are not getting crucial services that they deserve.
Eric, consider that I think it was in November, was it earlier, when the contracts for the CECs in Mombasa expired.
Yes.
Up until now, I don't believe that county has appointed new CECs. And what is of interest, again, we've raised this here, there was the issue of the inspectorate, 350 of them whose contract had also expired.
Yeah.
At the end of this month, you'll have the expiry of the contracts of chief officers. So, it's not yet the end of the month. Something may happen between now and then. But this is not an isolated, or these aren't isolated cases. What is it about the counties, and what is it about the governors, and what is it about this matter of filling these crucial gaps that are there constitutionally? What is it about these delays that seem to be occasioned? It's like a futile exercise in power where you will do what you think you want at the time when you want. Yet we know clearly that these are mandated offices and they have to exist.
Indeed. The case of Mombasa is different in this particular case because we have a governor, we have a deputy governor. They are in office. The appointing authority is fully in office, should be able to answer to why they haven't taken that action.
That is why I'm
Right?
raising the issue.
Now, the case of these other three counties, they can come up with the excuse of, you see, as a governor, I was due to start nominating members of the County Public Service Board, but I haven't because I'm barred from accessing my office or from performing the duties of my office. Remember also, when the governor of these governors were actually sent packing, apart from Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko, this was last year. It was when they were supposed to be signing the finance bills. Finance bill allows the county to raise revenue.
Right.
Right now, Kiambu and Samburu are raising revenue from people, collecting rates without a legal framework because there has not been any governor to sign the bill into law. If somebody from Kiambu went to court today and said, why is this, and with what legal provision is this county inspectorate officer coming to tell me to pay for my license? What do they say?
They wouldn't have a leg to
They
stand
wouldn't
on.
actually have a leg to stand on.
Yep.
You wouldn't really be able to say anything because on what authority, really, an authority in this case that we'll be looking at is the law. And the law doesn't prescribe for such right now. There are no provisions that prescribe for such in this case right now. And that's why we see a lot of these in limbo and we then have to ask the question, so then what happens? I think then it is absolutely necessary because oftentimes it could be that such attention was not given in such cases because they never saw a situation where it would happen or it would be necessary. But here we are faced several examples where it needs to happen. Impeachment of a governor, being asked to sit out of office by the same law, which then doesn't provide what should happen when such an individual has been removed for whatever reason. So then it was never envisioned that such a thing would happen. And so there was no attention that had been given to it. So yes, I do agree that something needs to be done. It needs to be sped up, so that's something, because the cases that we've seen over the last number of months alone is enough to say, all right, then we need to have something that is standing that says this is what should be done in the event that such and such a thing would happen.
It goes even beyond that. So even if Beatrice Elachi, for example, the Nairobi County Assembly Speaker, summoned or recalled the county assembly and said, let's continue with our work. So they come up with bills, they sit down and pass legislation. That legislation should be signed into law by a governor. There's no governor in office. Which means that anything that the county assembly is doing is useless.
Just
Basically,
lame
you're coming
ducks,
up, you're coming
basically.
back with laws, but those laws cannot be, those bills cannot be signed into law because there's no governor in office. The kind of limbo that we are seeing, these are three counties at a go. If another governor is taken to court by DPP Nordin Hajing tomorrow, fourth goes in, and we'll have issues piling up. Now, of course, the good thing is that we are not questioning the fact that, well, if somebody is, I support the issue of if somebody is taken to court, they should not be able to continue operating in office as if nothing happened. I support that. But then this is why the courts should tell us this is what...
Then this is what would happen in the
needs to
event
happen.
that such a thing rears its ugly head. This is then what would happen.
This is the
You've got to
interpretation.
have, you've got to have a spare tire. You don't walk around your vehicle. Your 4 tires. You need to have a spare, and this is what we're talking about. You need to have a way out. In the event that this should happen, this then is what you should do. And unfortunately, I think then also sheds light on the fact that in many cases, the system is not very clear on what should be done. I mean, we talked last week about, all right, if this is what the law says, interpret it in a way then that we can all understand it and we move forward. Because we're not just talking about layman understanding. We have cases where the DPP himself is not very clear about then what the court says in terms of then who can sit or not sit or what duties then they can now fulfill or administer. We have members of parliament themselves. We have the governors themselves who really, we can call it whatever we want. But at the end of the day, people just don't know what it means when the law says this or the other thing. Now, making provisions are also something that must be done. Because like I said, you never expected it, right? Where you say the law then would have to be, legislation would have to take place, but then you would need a governor to sign that or to approve such. And we don't have one. Who would have thought that would have been the case ever?
And the deputy governor is barred from taking over any of these responsibilities.
When there is a deputy governor.
And yet, there's a deputy governor who's drawing a salary, who is actually going to office on a daily basis because he's there, and the governor is on who's been barred from accessing office. Why is a deputy governor not being allowed to perform the functions? He was elected as deputy governor anyway by the people. Given the role, you will deputize this particular person.
You know, every time something of this sort happens, remember we were discussing the situation in Nairobi earlier on.
Yeah.
And a lot of it hinged on the amendment of the charter of the university and the act that more or less governs it. This was 2012. Now, against this backdrop, there are court cases that have actually brought into being rulings that explain certain things about the existence and the office of the VC. This is yet another case. It is just as well that this confusion reigns, because these matters will have to go to court. It's not something that can be debated in Senate or Parliament. No. They have to go to court because it's a matter of the law. And an interpretation has to be given. And that will give us the way forward.
It could also go to Parliament. Parliament can amend the law to allow for a deputy governor to assume some responsibilities. You see? So the court does not have to interpret with the current law, which is also ambiguous. So we make it very clear from the legal provisions, go and amend the County Assemblies Act or the County Governments Act to ensure that when a governor is not in office for a particular reason, for instance, barred from accessing office by a court in the Republic of Kenya, then the deputy governor shall perform these functions this way and the other. Can seek approval, every action must be vetted by the assembly. Have some checks and balances to ensure that the deputy governor is not running amok, but
the way
give the
this thing
powers to someone.
was constituted. There was a clear plan. No governor, you have deputy. No deputy, you have speaker.
Yes.
Clearly understood, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, where the bottleneck comes in is now the powers. Who can do what? Because in each of these counties that you speak of, the speakers are in place.
They're in
Some of them,
office.
deputy in office. Yes. Now, functions.
This is where politics actually played in when we're writing the Constitution and we are writing these laws. Politics comes in and you think, if I have a deputy who I don't trust, who wants to usurp my powers, they can engineer so that I'm not in office.
So let's
and then
make
they
sure.
take over. So let's make sure
that they're
that
not
even
there.
when I'm not there, they cannot do
I am
anything
there.
in my absence. Right? This is where the politics was coming to play. And the politicians have been pushed to a corner. Accept, just go back and see, we made a mistake. Let's give the deputy governors power to do this.
In fact, the speaker
Let's
that
take a
said-
short break. 18
Okay.
minutes past 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
What I wanted to say was, you see, there isn't really a complication here. When the speaker was here, if you recall, the speaker of the Senate,
Yep.
he didn't allude to this. He actually stated and said there were individuals who are now in the Senate who were actually there at the point when some of these laws were being constructed in the Constitution.
Yeah.
They oversaw this. So is it that they fell asleep when some of these issues were being discussed, or that was the day they were not there? But clearly, if as a Kenyan I were to look at this, I would say that selfish interests came to the fore, and now it's coming back to bite us.
Yeah.
People who could oversee the construction of such a beautiful constitution, you're going to tell me they missed out on this? No.
No. They were so focused on what works for them
Yes.
that they assumed that everything else
Was going to fall in place.
Was going to
Or
fall
would
in
never
place.
actually affect them. And this is the thing, unfortunately, because that's what planning means, that you take into consideration all possible outcomes. And that's what planning is, that you say, okay, this could very well happen. And obviously that did not take place because, yes,
Selfish.
Carry on.
selfish
The
interest.
self bit is correct. Now the second part.
Is the issue less?
Selfish interest came into
see.
play. It came into play, and that's clear. And then, of course, not planning for the future. And it seems to be the thing that dogs government across the board, dogs anybody across the board. When you fail to plan, you plan to fail, essentially. Because in this case now, what then will be done? Because they're at an impasse.
What needs to be done?
They're at an impasse because what are they going to do?
This is the good thing I was saying. This is a very good thing.
It's exposing.
Yes, these aren't bad things. These are good. This quagmire, excellent.
It's exposing things.
It is said, when people talk about Machiavelli, people say things that they think and then attribute it to Machiavelli. So let me join that crowd and also throw one in.
It's Machiavellian in nature.
No.
Go.
No. It is said that in planning and plotting how he would take control, he had everything in place, but there's one thing he had not considered, that he would fall sick.
Or die.
There's that detail. These fellows planned all these things. What they didn't foresee is what is now happening. One, them being toothless and powerless in Senate.
Yep.
And a situation that would actually expose the decision-making, because we have to question. These were lawyers, and these are seasoned
These are
lawyers.
seasoned lawyers. In fact, these are the people who championed
Yes.
for this constitution.
The folks
Yes.
are worth their dime if you want to look at it that way.
They know their stuff. Nobody doubts it. So you're telling me these people whom we hold in high esteem, with good reason, missed out on this one? No.
And the people we're talking about, just to name them, the writers of our constitution, in fact, just so to speak. Former Attorney General Amos Wako goes to the Senate. Kiraito Morongi, who was the Justice Minister, goes to the Senate. We have Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, one who championed the writing of this constitution, goes to the Senate. Lawyer Otieno Kajwang, the late, goes to the Senate. If you look at
James
all these
Orengo
people, James Orengo
goes to the Senate. Wetangula
goes to the Senate. Look at all of them and look at who they are, what they represent in terms of the writing of this constitution that we have. They all went to the Senate, and then they get there and they realize, wait a minute, we don't have powers.
Plus some young blood like Burkomen.
Yes.
These are sharp people.
Very, very intelligent people. They saw it and they missed it. It completely blindsided them, such that now we have two of them have gone back to the counties. Now they are governors, Anyang' Nyong'o and Kiraito Morongi. We have Orengo is the Senate minority leader, still in the Senate. But what powers do you have? Now you're asking the court to interpret the law that you wrote. This law is not clear. Who becomes deputy governor? Does the deputy governor play some role in the absence of a governor?
Apart from just being some lame deputy.
Yes, some lame deputy. Now you don't have a governor, you don't have a deputy. Uh-huh.
And you're saying now go legislate.
In the
and
case
from
of
that
Nairobi,
legislation,
don't have
it
a
needs
governor, don't have a deputy. You're going to ask the Supreme Court to interpret what happened. What does the law say? This is what the Supreme Court is just going to interpret. What does the law say?
Now we need to look at.
It's not clear.
If we look at the case of Nairobi, for example, obviously with the nomination of this deputy, which was then shut down at the assembly stage for Nairobi specifically.
Yeah.
In this case now, because obviously, of course, now the worrying eyes are at play here, because then essentially what happens to this county that's so important when it comes to the running of country, national affairs. What would happen? Because we're in a quagmire, that's for real, that's for sure. And of course, it highlights the fact that so much went wrong, or that so much was not planned for. But it cannot continue like this. We cannot continue to operate in limbo.
Yep.
Something needs to be done. Obviously now, the power that would step in this case, everybody is, of course, turning their eyes back and looking at the courts and saying, okay, so then what happens in this
Please
case?
interpret for us.
Interpret for us so that we can know what to do. And at this point, it is absolutely necessary that the court does step in.
And the
say,
court
"This
is
is
also
what
afraid. If you
needs
look
to
at what the
happen."
Court of Appeal was doing, you can see the Court of Appeal was afraid of playing a political game.
Oh,
Yes.
sure, of course.
When
but then,
they
of course, they're the
they were like,
same.
we cannot suspend this governor. All we can say is that you're still the governor. You are still enjoying all your benefits, but you please don't go into office.
But we must
Now,
understand that we're
let
coming
this
to a
political
time.
issue be dealt with by politicians.
But we're coming to a
That's what
time
this-
in February when the 60 days will be over. The
Yes.
60 days will have been exhausted, and the decision needs to be made. Now, of course, a lot of political play comes in here. Will Speaker Beatrice Elachi then be given a position? What would happen? But it seems to me that the people who have the answers are mum. The people who have the answers at this point really need to open their mouths and say something, because we're going back and forth. Everybody's interpreting it in the way in which they wish to. Everybody's making assumptions about how it should run. The political pundits are now come on, folks.
No, it's a good thing. A good thing.
We're going round and round in circles.
Yes,
this proverbial tail that is being chased has not been clamped upon just yet.
It's a good thing.
What are we doing?
It's a good thing.
In the first round, when you had this issue of deputy governor and a deputy, the Senate was forced to actually go back to the drawing board and came up with what the Senate Speaker was telling us, the Assumption of Office Bill. Now, that sorts out some few issues here on how does a deputy governor rise to the office of governor, and what happens. Are they allowed to nominate a deputy once they have become the deputy in the absence of the demise of the impeachment of the governor?
That one lacked clarity.
It was not clear. So if we have impeached the governor of Embu, for example, and the deputy becomes the governor, what happens to the office of the deputy? So they had to come up with that law.
Or if the governor passes away.
Or if the governor passes away. And we've seen now 2 instances where governors have passed away. What happens, right? That clarity had to happen because they were pushed to a corner.
Now, I think
we needed to see.
Yeah, okay, so we needed to see that come out, because looking at Nairobi, people can say whatever they need to say and all kinds of, perceptions can come to the fore. However, we're getting to that point where they're being pushed to the wall. And now, like I said, those with the answers need to be vocal and say, this is what essentially needs to happen. This is what the law, because the law at the same time is the one that has essentially made these would-be leaders toothless, powerless at this point. It is the same law that has said, with all the noise that you're making, really, you're not going anywhere unless we have this person in place. Now, we don't have this person in place. Something needs to be done. Now, that's something. They still need to be the ones to tell us essentially what it is. Otherwise, this could go on for yonks.
Who, in your opinion, should be providing this clarity? The
courts,
judges?
I mean, they're the ones who made these rulings in the first place, whereby, okay, we cannot take away your powers. We cannot ask you to leave office. We can ask you not to perform your duties at a particular point in time.
Yeah.
However, the clarity needs to come from then. Okay, fine. You've made this ruling in this case. So then what happens?
You see, the courts can't unelect you.
Exactly. They cannot. They cannot, because they didn't put you there in the
first
place.
So what is the legal process that enables them to sort of like punish you for your misdeeds without
at the same time
not breaking this law,
which
they're supposed to uphold? All right? Now there's lack of clarity, and they are the only ones who can clarify it for us.
I think this matter just needs to go back to Parliament.
And?
National Assembly and the Senate. Go and look at the law and provide clarity in the law. Amend the law so that it's clear.
But
see, the reason why the judges are having to be asked to interpret is because they're being given an ambiguous piece of legislation, and they're being told, now interpret it for us. If you've come to me, CT, with something that looks like a vest, it's not a vest, it's not a shirt, it's not a jacket, and ask me to interpret whether this should be a jacket.
That's easy.
What am I going to tell you?
It's a skirt.
So I tell you it's a skirt, you wear it as a bottom. So what happens to the top?
How is that my problem?
That is where now the issue comes in. That is where the issue comes in. And then we're going back to the same judges and telling them, but judge, we needed a top. Please interpret for us how this top should look like. I cannot. What you brought to me is something that looks like a top, but it's none of those things that you're calling a top.
It is true that there's a way in which even our courts can be limited, and they may not have sufficient ammunition to give the sort of interpretation that we think would be adequate. But again, that is a good thing, because then what you've suggested then comes into force, meaning this thing was inadequate to begin with. Can we address its inadequacy at the level of Parliament and enact a law that actually covers all this? There are enough people who understand these things. The committees, see, it starts at committee level.
Yep.
Yes, they know what to do. It's not that they don't know. Listen, if you're going to enact the law,
they just need the guts to do it.
Yes, because you know where it has failed, you know where it has been insufficient, so you know exactly what to fill in. It's not that you don't know, you do know.
the political games come in there at that point.
This is what I was going to say. I think there's some quarters. There's some quarters that are really enjoying this circus that's going on right now. And they're saying, well, and it's an opportunity. It provides a perfect opportunity for someone to swoop in and be the Superman of the day. And I think that's what we're going to see. Somebody who sits at a position in Parliament is going to rise up and say, this is what needs to happen. This is the floor that we need to take it to. And we need to turn this thing on its head and then present it to the law, to the courts and say, here, this is what we've come up with. Assent,
And it's going to
deny.
be called a person's amendment.
Absolutely.
The
And I'm telling
Muga
you,
amendment.
somebody's waiting to swoop in, y'all, and that's what's going to happen.
7:30. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're discussing the legal limbo that is presenting itself in Kiambu, Samburu, and Nairobi. Who is the governor? Who is the deputy? Can the deputy do anything in that office? Are they just toothless? Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Wow, Thika Road is a disaster this morning. It's too much traffic from Garden City inbound, unfortunately. The traffic is in a shambolic state, as has been described this morning, unfortunately. Trying to get into the city is an exercise in patience. Langata Road is all the way from the barracks now, just about 10 meters past KWS. The barracks now all the way down to town. It's happy hour on Juja Road. It's not finished, but you're going to stand in one position for a very long time. All right, Red Hill Bypass is actually being used now, and that's an option to get to the city a little bit quicker. Also, the Southern Bypass and the Eastern Bypass are working this morning. Ngong Road to town before the junction is bad in terms of traffic that it is. Kiambu Road is flowing, but of course you're going to join Thika Road at some point and not move as much as or as quickly as you would expect. Somebody has bewitched Mombasa Road today, we're being told. It's an absolute mess. Getting into town is not happening. It's going to be, again, an exercise in patience on this Tuesday morning. Let us know if you find an alternate route. Spice FM KE or 0719 012 600 is the number to call.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
28
Nairobi.
minutes to 8 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? Thank you very much for tuning in to Spice FM. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga and Ndu, of course. So many of us are celebrating because we've seen the courts rein in on some people who we consider bad people. These are three governors: the governor of Kiambu, of Nairobi, of Samburu, who've been taken to court in charge of a corruption, and they've been asked by the courts not to access their offices. So this has presented a crisis in these three counties, and let me tell you how this crisis is unfolding. In the case of Kiambu and Samburu, for example, after the budget was passed last year, the budget was passed after June last year, the county assemblies went and looked at how the county government was proposing to raise revenue, and this is contained in the county finance bill. So the county finance bills have been passed by the county assemblies. They need to be assented by the county governor so that they become law. With the absence of the county governor, the deputy county governor cannot sign these bills into law. We are due to get some supplementary budgets that are coming in from the county assemblies for this during this financial year. The county deputy governor cannot sign this into law, so they don't have powers to spend this money. Now, let's look at the impact of this as well. In Kiambu, for instance, 4 chief officers, this is the equivalent of PSs in 4 departments. This is roads, ICT, urban development, and public service are not in office. These are the accounting officers. It means that these 4 departments do not have somebody to sign for them to draw money from the coffers. Well, let's also look at the staff. County of Kiambu wanted to hire some nurses. It had some employees who are on casual contracts, and those contracts, of course, expire at the end of a year and then need to be renewed. The people who hire them and need to renew their contracts are called the County Public Service Board. The tenure of the first County Public Service Board was expiring last year, mid-last year. New board members were supposed to be appointed. 5 of those board members had their tenures expire. The County Public Service Board is supposed to have 7 members. we only have 2 members of Kiambu PSB in office. They don't form a quorum. They cannot do any work. That means workers in Kiambu County don't have a public service board. Hey, this is a crisis that's unfolding. And it's all in a matter of what powers does the deputy governor have. The deputy governor does not have powers to transfer, to appoint, to nominate, to sign bills into law. Does not have any of those powers.
So then it begs the question, then why do we have this position in the first place? If we're going to look further into it. If they really can't do anything except shadow the governor, then why are they there?
And even when they shadow the governor, they still cannot do anything until
something happens to the governor in terms of ill health or death.
Yes.
Right? Or removal from office. But then the removal from office again means that you don't have the power to do certain things. And if we're looking at the running of a particular county, a lot of it involves, a great percentage of it involves money.
And it's a day-to-day operations.
Yeah, exactly. So why do we have this position in the first place? For us to ask the question, why is it there? Because if they can't do anything, then it's one of those jobs that you would consider redundant. There's nothing that you're doing. So, I mean, we don't need that position.
The matter of a governor stepping aside, or not really stepping aside, but not accessing office, let's just put it correctly, not accessing office was ruled by Justice Mombingoge. This was taken to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal upheld Justice Mombingoge's opinion, but also they said a governor is still the governor. He has not been suspended just because he's appeared in court. He's still the governor, but he cannot access office. So we still have those two things. We have a governor in office, so constitutionally we don't have a vacancy in that office. Therefore, the deputy governor cannot assume any of the responsibilities of a governor. Lacuna.
And yet, the governor himself cannot discharge
those duties.
The duties that the Constitution mandates him to do. Hiya. Good position to be in.
Very good position to be in if you are not a person from Kiambu County or Samburu or Nairobi. But if you're from these 3 counties, it means that you woke up one early morning, you went and voted in your government so that the government can deliver services to you, and yet this government cannot deliver services to you because of legal provisions, because the law is not clear on how the government should deliver services to you in such circumstances. This is a raw deal to the people of these 3 counties.
Well, like I said, short of a Superman swooping in to make sure that this is sorted out, I think the courts then have a responsibility then to make sure that they sort this out, because a lot of why they cannot operate came from them in the first place. And it needs to be sorted out because it's a mess that we have right now going on. And yes, as comical and as entertaining as it is to watch and see how all of this unfolds, it's not right to have a county as important as this. Just taking Nairobi, for example, to be in such a situation, it needs to be sorted out, and somebody needs to step forward and take it and say, this is what we meant, this is what can happen, this is what cannot happen, and we need to move on because we've been stuck here for some time, and by all indications, we're going to be stuck here for a lot longer. We're going to be here for a minute more if we don't actually figure out what needs to happen.
The Senate will be sitting this afternoon, and they'll be receiving the impeachment notes from the County Assembly of Kiambu, which said it has impeached the governor of Kiambu County. Of course, the Senate will discuss this and then form a committee that will look into the allegations that have been brought against them. They'll discuss and see what happens next. While at the same time, we have a deputy governor who is completely toothless. He has his hands tied. He cannot do much. What I want to say this morning is we should allow the deputy governor to perform the functions of a governor at any point when, due to any other circumstance, the governor is not in office. Let's add this thing of being charged in court as one other, added there. If the governor is not in office because he's incapacitated, because of ill health, because he has been impeached, also because he has been taken to court on corruption charges or serious crime.
Just looking at questions that are
allow
rising.
the deputy governor to perform these duties.
Looking at questions that are rising, into all of this, of course, the question is then how come in other places, in other countries where you have a deputy governor, that they are able to take on the role? We see other countries where even as far as deputy president, then stand in and take on an oath of office immediately.
They went through this process before us.
Exactly. They went through the
So
process
we
and
can
they
borrow.
understood.
Not necessarily.
They understood that
They straightened it out.
that situations are not.
We can reference.
Okay. This is actually where I was going. Why is it that others are able to do it? Because they
have experience.
They saw that there was a possibility for such a thing that is being experienced now could actually happen, and they said, aha, so while we're doing this, how about we make provision in the event that such a thing could happen, then we can go on. We've seen from the movies and such, and it's actually how it happens, that in the event that something happens to the American president, for example, the deputy, the vice president is whisked into some room somewhere, the Bible is put down, put it there, folks, let's go.
Move.
Swear, move, oath, yes, we are done. So that
Yeah.
the country can continue moving. And that's the thing that they had
Immediately.
in
The
their
transition
sights.
process is
That's
very
what they
clear.
saw. Let's go. Yes, the person has died or is sick, God rest their soul, such a thing, but the country needs to continue moving. Things need to continue happening. And they saw that, and it works beautifully for them. And so I think, yes, upon experiences or upon other ideas, we can reference and say, this is the reason why they do such. It's not to glorify another position or to glorify another human being. It is for the interest of the country, or in this case, for the interest of the county. We cannot continue like this. How long have we been talking about Kiambu? How long will we talk about Nairobi?
But in
And
reality,
Samburu.
have they ground to a halt?
I mean, things are just kind of
In
happening
reality-
there.
No, in
No.
reality.
In reality, you see, if you do not have the finance bill signed, if you don't have a supplementary budget, for example, signed, it means that you'll not be able to draw money.
Okay, let me ask the question.
reality again-
have they ground to a halt?
They're heading there.
Let them grind to a halt.
They're heading there.
No, I'm actually not being facetious.
CT wants to
Let
get
us-
us to the push to shove situation,
let us-
and then
let us
something
get
will
to that.
actually be done.
Yes,
We've not reached push to
you
shove.
see,
That's why.
This debate will reach a crescendo, and that'll be it. Okay? When things cannot actually move and people are more or less figuring out what to do on their own, and every citizen of this county is more or less figures, well, why don't I just do my own thing and then get on with life? Now, that is a situation.
That'll force us to.
Yes, something will be done. And we'll have a lovely precedent as to what, because you will know the eventuality of such indecisions or ill thought out processes. Let it get to its head. Let it get to the nth. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
So county does not have money, does not have a law that allows it to draw money, that
Yes.
does not have somebody.
Let it get to the point where the citizens also say, we're not paying you.
Let's
Because
actually,
there's no-
yeah. Let's see the county assembly impeach all the CECs.
Let it fall apart. So you clearly see, and then you ask yourself, do I want to see this thing happening all over the country? The answer will be a resounding no. So what do we do? Make sure this process takes place. Remember, MPs have a long way to go. Our MPs don't want to go back and be MCAs.
Nope.
Silly though, because Kitui has something interesting. There's a gentleman who was once even minister, a gentleman called Ndoto, who is now speaker. Clever man, in my opinion. A person who understands that to stay relevant, you don't need these high-sounding positions.
No, come
no.
back here.
If-
Local level.
That's where you come from. Get involved in the processes of what happens on a day-to-day basis. Many of them will want to be senators. Many of them will want to be even governors. Okay? This, again, is the problem and the bottleneck.
If you ask me, actually, many of our MPs should actually be seeking the position of MCA. This is a very powerful position. If you think about it, this is a position that is influencing development and operations of a county level at your local level. This is where you exercise authority and influence in your village. Everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows what they need from you. Everybody knows that you are the one who can send this governor home.
Yeah, but there's a small problem.
What's the problem?
You don't work from Nairobi.
Oh, that's a problem.
You want to be near the seat of power.
Kwani?
You don't have national gravitas.
What? I mean, you're a stone throw away from your village. What's the fun in that?
You're mtu mdogo.
Essentially, you're a village elder.
You're mtu mdogo.
No.
We don't want that one.
You're not a genuine mheshimiwa. You want the genuine thing. Yes.
National.
Yes.
Originally meant in Nairobi.
Which comes with the proper V8. Yes. Another such trappings. Yes. And trips abroad, which
yeah.
nobody questions.
I'm going to open up the phone lines now. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. You can also post in your comment on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and Twitter, @Spice FM KE. Should the deputy governors of these three counties be given powers to perform full powers of a governor, so the county government does not grind to a halt? And that's what I'm saying. I say yes. The deputy governors of Nairobi, we don't have one in Nairobi. The deputy governors of Samburu and Kiambu should be given full powers to perform the functions of a governor, so that the people of Kiambu continue enjoying the services that they voted for.
Right.
0719-012-600. That's the number to call.
Spice FM. 96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I'm imagining what I'm saying today is not going to fall on a popular position with the supporters of Babayao or supporters of Lenol Kulal. When I say that their deputies start assuming the functions of the governors. Because, of course, we know this is the politics of the day. But let's hear what people say. From Nakuru, this is Zachary. Good morning, Zachary.
Oh, hi guys.
Hi.
Hi,
Good
Zachary.
morning.
Yeah, I hope you're having a good morning.
Yes, we are.
You?
Now, I want to just shortly or briefly state that
Mhm.
the issue of the deputy governor and what he should do is even interpretable by even the layman like me.
Mm.
Because if the issue was brought to me, I would use the conventional meaning of the word deputy or assistant. What is his work?
Mm.
It means that you are given the honors of fulfilling or conducting what your boss should be doing. So while he is away, you are given full powers.
To do that.
In fact, they would, yeah, definitely. At the same case, we are saying that, like now, Babayao, who happens to be my governor back in Kiabu, it doesn't mean, it means that he has been told not to access his office. Why? Because that is where the seals are, that is where the letterheads are, that is where the stamps are, okay?
Yeah.
But he's not allowed to, do you see?
He's not allowed
Now,
to
the
use
person
any of them.
Definitely. The person who is supposed or who is given the powers to access those instruments is now the deputy. So now you cannot come and convince me that if I've supplied materials to Kiabu county government, that the person who is supposed to sign my invoices and whatever is not there. What is the work of the governor? I mean, the deputy governor. And why are we paying him? So this issue, hello?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear
Yes,
you,
we're here.
Zachary.
This issue, even if you go to some of the most learned lawyers, they will tell you the moment they put the word deputy there,
Yep.
just fulfilled everything. So there is no issue, and if the deputy governor happens to actually not be in office, or that is incapacitated by any any eventuality, okay,
Yep.
the government is there to oversee.
Okay.
It is the government which does oversight.
Yep.
So there is no vacuum.
There's no vacuum.
Right.
Thank you,
No
Zachary.
vacuum.
Thank you, Zachary.
Thank you and have a nice day, guys. We love you guys.
Thank you
Asante
very
sana.
much,
We love you
Zachary.
too, Zachary.
Thank you.
Aye. Well, he's saying to him, it's very clear. It's pretty clear. Deputy means when somebody's not in office. See, I mean, City, you've headed a department, even in government. When you are away, your deputy does your deputy have powers?
Of course. It's not just deputies. See, the thing about government, it's clear. There's no ambiguity here. Functions of government have to continue. So it's not just deputy in terms of name. You deputize even with powers. That's the person who you go to and talk to.
And talk to.
In some cases, the person even moves from his office and sits in your office.
In your office, right?
Yes.
They sign everything.
So
they
you don't
use the rubber
they
stamp.
sign everything. But even when you are there, the government always provides for alternate signatories. So it's not as though anything will get stuck. No. Even if somebody who heads a parastatal isn't there, believe me, the function of that parastatal will continue.
Continue.
Because in the absence, if they are on leave, because people go on leave.
Yeah.
If they're out of the country, somebody has to sign. So it's not as though that vacuum simply never exists. It
So
doesn't.
this is just a political game that was inserted here by politicians.
Of course it is.
Just to ensure that, this deputy does not have enough powers to usurp my authority. I am the only one who is going to have the authority over this office.
And that's why I'm saying then the broader picture has not been taken into consideration, unfortunately. And this lens also light to see very many other things. Even when these laws are being enacted, it is for personal Unfortunately, it is for personal gain.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at the country as a whole. We're not looking at the country's development. We're not looking at taking 2-3 steps towards the future. We're looking at me, if it were me in this position. I don't want anybody who's going to come in and usurp my power. I want somebody who's going to be toothless so that I am the one and be all and end all of everything. As opposed to saying it's actually to the benefit of us all. If I have somebody who can stand in for me when I am not there, that doesn't mean they're taking over your position. It means they can stand in for
Stand
you.
in during
and
that
to say
time,
that this
in
it
your
is
absence.
the interest of the country that we are looking at.
Yep.
That's why we should have leaders. People who are going to stand in and take the interest of the country to heart. And they have a certain je ne sais quoi that they're able to use that other people don't have.
Okay.
And they're able to move forward.
That thing
Je
you
ne
just
sais quoi.
mentioned, the qua thing.
What is it?
It actually means
like a duck.
no, it
It
actually means
quacks.
it's a certain I
Eric,
don't know.
I'm happy that this is the one thing we both agree on. Our level of ignorance of this matter is on par. Carry on, explain the qua.
Oh, did you say quack?
Does it quack?
It's a certain I don't know what. That's what it means. I don't know what. It's something that you have. That's why you're set apart from other people. That you're a leader in one right or another.
Yep.
And that's why you've been given that responsibility for the country, not for yourself. But we've got it wrong, haven't we?
Of course
because
we
we have
have.
people who are there for their own personal interests and hoping
The je
to see
ne sais
that
quoi
they're
is
going
vested
to,
on one person.
that they're going to propel
The
this.
deputy does not have the quack 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 at all.
Get out of here, Eric.
You know, if you think about it, even at the county level, I am sure
Yeah.
the governor doesn't sign everything alone.
In fact, the governor
I
is
am
not
certain.
the accounting officer. Remember, the
Yes.
Senate Speaker was telling us, and we've seen this.
He's not.
When a governor is taken to court on matters of corruption, he says, I am not the accounting officer.
And he's
Ask
not.
the CEO. Now we have 4 CEOs who are not in office. Those are the ones who should be signing. So if there are people who should be signing, if you've supplied, Zachary Nakuru, if you've supplied anything to the Kiambu County government in the Department of Roads or ICT or urban development or
And you're
public
waiting for
service
your
and you're
money.
waiting for your money, sorry, nobody to sign. That's what is happening. Opening the calls, the phone lines, 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Comments also coming in on Twitter at SpiceFMKE and Facebook SpiceFMKE. This is Kenyan Wicha. He says, I think the honorable thing for the governors in question will be to officially step aside, allow the deputy to take office, even take half pay. Then if cleared by the courts, they just resume their role. But then he says, however, Kenyan politicians are selfish and they'd rather hold their counties at ransom.
Politicians in the world over are selfish. We don't take
But these
the cup
particular
for it.
ones have
One thing
They have a
is,
certain
if these
kanyama.
issues, if this, it does, if these issues hadn't come to the fore, even this discussion and the direction we're taking, it wouldn't have been so obvious that somewhere along the line, people were looking at their future interests and figuring, let's not make this thing too watertight. Let's not cover all the loopholes. We may need an escape valve. And so they provided it. And lo and behold,
This is it.
it's coming back to bite them.
Bing Charlie says, Governors Waitito, Lenol Kulal and Mike Sonko should prove beyond any reasonable doubt that they are not kingpins of their county's criminal enterprise. It's a sacrifice worth making. We cannot and should not entertain thievery at any cost. What do you think? 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Should the deputy governors in these 3 counties, well, in the case of Nairobi, forget, in Samburu and Kiambu, be allowed to exercise the full authority
What is the role of the county?
office
What is
of
the
a
role of the
governor?
county secretary?
The role of the county secretary. Let's first of all pick this call. This is Okello. Good morning, Okello.
Good morning. How are you?
We're
Good
fine,
morning.
thank
I hope you have a nice week so far.
Thank
you. Yes, we're having a nice one. Are you?
Great. Perfect.
Good.
Couldn't be better.
Good.
So, I'd like to chime in on this.
Yes, go ahead.
One, I think we as Kenyans are unfortunately overly dramatic about this issue. Why do I say so? Number one, the law is very clear on these issues. And I know there are a lot of lawyers who like saying the law is very clear, the law is very clear. But the law does not allow for the removal of an elected person apart from the provisions in the Constitution. So, like the county of Kiambu has taken the step to impeach their governor.
Yep.
That is the only way you can remove or suspend an elected official, and that is the law. Number two, the Court of Appeal and the High Court.
Yep.
The High Court gave its ruling, and the Court of Appeal clarified it. So what the Court of Appeal said is that the High Court never at any time said it had suspended the governor.
Yep.
What the High Court had said is that it had told the governor not to step into office. Now, you need to understand where this was coming from, because you have the criminal process where the criminal court and the High Court on appeal needs to protect the evidence.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Because there are some instances where some people were left out on bail, which is a constitutional right. So some people were let out on bail and they went to their offices and they completely did away with the evidence. So the reason that the governor was told not to step into his office was so that he does not interfere with the evidence. I'll put this in perspective. A criminal court does not have labor employment and labor jurisdiction. So a criminal court cannot say that we are suspending your duties as a governor.
Right.
What a criminal court is concerned with, and the High Court on appeal is concerned with, is the protection of the evidence.
So
the only reason that somebody was told not to step into office was
to protect the evidence.
Protect the evidence.
So is it your interpretation, therefore, Kello, that the governor is still allowed to perform the duties or the functions of that office?
Absolutely. He's the governor. He's on full salary. The Court of Appeal said so. You see, this is the point that we keep on missing from the Court of Appeal ruling. The Court of Appeal said so, that he is the governor. If he is the governor, he's not the governor by word. He is the governor. That is what the Court of Appeal said. Yeah.
The argument. So your argument is that these governors are still in office. They should be able to serve, to do everything that pertains to their office.
Able to do whatever pertains to their office.
Just not access the physical office.
What the criminal court is concerned with is the protection of the evidence. So for him not to access the office is to protect the evidence, so that it is. So the criminal court does not have employment and labor jurisdiction.
Right.
The High Court does not have employment and labor jurisdiction. There is another court which has that jurisdiction, the Employment and Labor Jurisdiction Court. So
you're a lawyer, Okello, I gather.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, so there are other lawyers who argue the other way. Yeah? You lawyers always confuse us.
You see, maybe you may need to look at. I don't want to criticize those other lawyers who argue that.
Please criticize them. It is fine. I mean, this is you're not criticizing the individuals. You're criticizing the views on
point
this
of
matter.
view.
Yes.
Yeah, but from the perspective of the law, because that is where I'm coming from. I'm not even going to talk about what the other lawyers have said, but where I'm coming from is the perspective of the law. Chapter 6 has been bandied around as the reason for this suspension. What if you look at Chapter 6, what it actually says is the person who put you there has an obligation to remove you when you're charged of an offense.
Yeah.
So the person who put an elected governor in
office is the voter.
In office is the voter. So it is that person who can remove. And the only process that has been given in the Constitution
is an election.
Is the impeachment process.
All right.
It's the election and the impeachment process. So that is why the Senate and the MCAs are the only body that have the authority
to remove the governor from office.
and or remove the
Thank you
governor.
very much, Okello. Thank you for your views. We get to the top of the hour. And the conversation continues on our social media platforms as well. Our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter. You can all go onto our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. We are also live streaming the show, as we always do, on YouTube. Our channel is Spice FM KE. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be talking about the issue in Kiambu and Samburu and Nairobi counties, whose governors have been asked by the courts not to step into office, and the implication of this, especially because the deputy governors don't have necessary authority. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu. Traffic.
Have things changed, right? Bagathi Way, and avoid it at all costs if you can, because it is not moving this morning. Taking off what is coming off of Langata Road this morning, and interestingly enough, this is in and outbound. So if you don't have to use it right now, don't. We're right in the middle of traffic hour this Tuesday morning, and we've seen on Mombasa Road and Thika Road as well, you can't really get past. And of course, the suggestion is being made, use a motorbike if you can on Gong Road as well, because traffic has reached bumper to bumper proportions there. Looking at Embakasi, the train is struggling to move, and dozens of people have been stranded, and they're going to try and get onto public transport that is actually now stuck in traffic. So this, again, we're going to see a problem with. Jogo Road trying to get into the city centre from the city stadium roundabout is causing some problems for us this morning as well. So across the city, and interestingly enough, across the country from Mombasa to Kisumu, we've seen heightened traffic situations today. Hopefully we get out of traffic hour and people get where they're going as quickly as possible. If you find an alternate, shout out on Twitter at Spice FM KE, or give us a call 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If you're in Lamu, you can get us on Spice FM KE YouTube, Spice FM KE Facebook, Spice FM KE Twitter, as well as our website www.spicefm.co.ke. When you're coming out of Lamu, now traveling towards Mombasa, you'll get to areas of Malindi, 97.7. You'll get us, if you're in Kilifi, on 97.7, in Mombasa on 87.9. If you're coming towards Nairobi, 94.4, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, and Nyeri 90.9. Now, how many people know the full meaning of lapset? We talk about it all the time.
Let's give it 5 minutes and see. Open the lines. Let's see people who can actually
People who can actually say,
tell us what does lapset
lapset in full. Right.
It means lapset.
Lapset. It means lapset.
Yes.
First of all, what's lapset and where is it? What is this lapset?
First of all, it's a mega. It's not just a project. It's not these mega projects in Kenya. Lamu Port - South Sudan Ethiopia Transport Corridor Program.
Lamu Port LAP.
Yes.
South Sudan SS. Ethiopia Transport SET lapset.
Corridor program. Yes. Now you've got lapset. Yes. Now, this is one of the more ambitious projects that was actually undertaken during the Kibaki era. And like many such projects, its vision, or what it envisioned, was something that would, well, initially it was just supposed to work within Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Kenya. And with the passage of time, this particular vision has grown. The idea was, one, build a port and with it provide the sort of infrastructure that makes it possible for these three countries to not just function but to trade and to ensure that what you become a common trade area, make it not just functionable and feasible, but to make it something that will strengthen the ties of these countries. Now, when you tie up the economic interests of three countries, the likelihood of tying up others becomes also a reality. And this is what AFCFTA, now this one is not LAPSET, but it's the African Continental Free Trade Area, comes in. Mm-hmm. And why does it come in? Because now you're talking about not just part of the African continent, but most of the African continent. The debate that is now going on is that this LAPSET program can actually connect the eastern part of Africa to the western part of Africa. And how do they do this? Well, the idea is to build a road network, a railway network. The port already exists. To build pipelines. Essentially, to open up all these areas from one end to the other and in between to the sort of trade that enables countries to grow. Now, my interest in this is not just the mega project and the value thereof. No. My interest is the possibilities of what it brings into being. One of the things it brings into being is something that is a constant debate in this country, and that is employment. When you have such structures, just the magnitude of it, it means, one, you have to find the money to do them, but two, it means you have to employ people, personnel, everything that previously had not been employed, because this is a project that is new unto itself. Whether this is going to be a reality is now something that we have to debate and look at. But the current government seems determined to ensure that this particular project moves forward. I think that if Kenya is going to solve some of the teething and some of the monumental problems they have, like unemployment, ensuring that they have a market for their goods, to expand their economy, this growth of 5 to 6% we keep talking of, for it to move into 2 digits, LAPSET may be the key to opening up the country to the point where these can be not just something in blueprint, but a reality.
LAPSET is one of those big mega projects that we talk about in this country.
Yes.
If this was China, LAPSET would be complete, dusted, and would have moved on.
Yes.
But now this is Kenya.
We'd have
So
LAPSET 2.0 at this point.
Here we are. We haven't launched the port. Lamu port. We haven't launched the port.
We don't have the road network to the port.
We don't have the road network to the port. So we're talking about now, they've started constructing the road going towards Tana River and going towards Garissa, right? We have talked about issues in the corridor. I think that's where the airport at Isiolo was also falling out into that corridor area.
Yes, it was.
Development. But starting with the port, it has taken us so long, so many years to finish the port. The president was saying the other day that they're due to go and launch the port in a few days' time. So we have the port, we'll be ready, but we don't have the roads to transport the goods to and from that port. Where I'm heading with this is big project on paper. We have people in government who actually think, and they think well, and they think throughout very many things. And then entrepreneurs come in. The criminal enterprise sets in. And that is what derails the
I think
entire process.
they've been in place for quite some time, and it explains the slow nature of this process. But there has been a new development. It's called the African Union. Kenya actually happens to house, and one of its prominent citizens also happens to be somebody very important. It's called the African Union High Representative for Infrastructure Development, the Honorable Raila Odinga. Now, last week, he actually launched this process. What process am I talking about? The AU actually adopted LAPSET. And in adopting it, they said that if AU were to work in conjunction with the AFCTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, then the very thing that I spoke about can become a reality. Now, why I say the possibilities are great is that this isn't something that is undoable.
Yeah.
Remember, this issue of connecting the continent by road, by rail, many people began this project and died not having seen it to a completion.
Yeah.
One of the people who, in many, many centuries prior, somebody called Cecil Rhodes, he had this ambition. Somebody called Grogan, he had this ambition. People have had this Grogan, the British East Africa Company, when they were building the Kenya-Uganda Railway. They didn't just intend for this to get to the source of the Nile. No. They had every intention of ensuring that they went to the rest of the continent. Because remember, the British had colonies in East Africa, they had colonies in West Africa. And what would have been better for them than to connect all these colonies together? Yes. It wasn't realized. Now, this is closer to a realization, that dream, than anything else we've had. Because the reality and the benefits that every country involved becomes a reality because it's something they can see and they can understand. The problem is not even the politics. The problem are the entrepreneurs, as Eric very eloquently put it. People who put benefit and profit way, way ahead of what is the benefit or the common good for the citizenry. Now, these people don't exist without the connivance of people in government. They can't exist. They can't even profit, because to profit means you need to get paid. You need to have access to money. You can't have access to money unless you have access to officials within government who have access to this money. When we began the new railway, the single gauge, is it single gauge?
Yes, it is.
Yes. SGR.
Standard.
Standard, not single.
Oh, standard, right.
Single was the other one, eh?
Yes, it's
Okay.
standard
It was meter
gauge.
gauge. The other one is a meter gauge.
A meter gauge. All right. One thing that many people may have forgotten is that Uganda and Rwanda were part of that deal.
Yes.
Where they pulled out is when we kept escalating the costs. It isn't the only thing. We had a pipeline that was to join us to Uganda as well, and the other players who'd been brought in. Again, this issue of cost that is unique to Kenya came up again, and they pulled out. The only thing that I see that can derail this thing is if this same game of doing the Kenyan thing of skyrocketing prices. Yes, remember those figures we were talking about the other day? We know what
29 billion.
Yeah, that was the most recent, 29 billion.
Yes, and you're thinking, yes. Because the moment you talk about such a project, these individuals we speak of will have started doing their maths. How can we hype
They
this?
looked into it. Remember, among the first things that President Uhuru did when he came to office was cancel some very many illegally acquired title deeds in that entire region of Tana River.
He did.
Because of looking at the Lapsat corridor. And people had gone and acquired land.
Yes.
Was it 500,000 acres
Oh,
of land?
no. People had acquired a lot of
You
land.
know? An entire 500,000 acres of land has actually been acquired unprocedurally by people. Just because people are looking at how they can benefit from Lapset. You know what that means is by the time they're doing the paperwork for acquiring these pieces of land, they will not allow anything else to happen because they want things to happen in tandem with their timetable. I think it's about time we identified some of these people and paraded them like the way you say. Have a national day at Uhuru Park, parade them up there and, deal with them.
So these are the people that are responsible for the retrogressive nature of our economy.
Well, these things that we're talking about, what city is talking about now, building the roads, it was actually conceived in 1971 by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. 3 highways, right? One from Cape to Cairo. Another one from Lagos, Nigeria to Mombasa, Kenya. Another one cutting across Dakar in Senegal to the Gulf of Aden, Djibouti. So now, none of those exists. And we're talking about how many years later? So many years, 1971 to now.
How many decades are those?
It's madness. It's over 4 decades.
It's about 4 decades. It is a little after.
We're actually going.
It's about 5.
Next year it'll be 50 years.
Since this has been done. So of course begs the question then that what. And this is something that we've looked at time and time again. And what dogs us or what plagues us is not just inter-country, that where we see within the country, but it seems to be something that then spills over onto then anybody that we tend to do business with. And when I say we, I don't just mean as Kenyans, but I mean as other countries that enter into such projects.
But what I find alarming, is that it's like these cartels have gotten the government by the neck.
Yeah.
We talk of cartels, and yet it's government functionaries who enable them.
No, it actually just means that the people in government are the cartels.
Simple arithmetic.
It's just 1 plus 1.
Yes.
The government is the cartel.
Yes.
The government comprises the cartels.
If you want to look at another example, I mean, look at LabSearch, and we're talking about heavy infrastructure. We're looking at linking one country to another. We're looking at making sure that things that we say will boost profiles of African countries, for example, like trade, will be boosted by things like this: highways, ports. Across the board, we are looking at so many things in terms of infrastructure that can help not just Kenya but other countries. You want to enter into agreements like this. You want to complete projects like this, because if you look at if all we're looking at is an individual interest, imagine how much more you could do when we then come together and all of those interests then can be applied. You want to do something like this. You want to be able to be known to complete such. And
you want to be read about in books. You want to go down in history.
If you're going to talk about how
it is the thing
that linked one country, that linked one country to another. You want to do this.
No. Lofty views, excellent. People want to own helicopters. They want to buy vast acres
today
of land.
And now.
They want to buy buildings in town, and they want to drive
and own some property outside the country.
That would be ideal.
Go to Dubai
if in 2-3 countries would be ideal, then they want to drive some really fancy cars, which really cost the equivalent of a very decent house.
And their children to study in the best schools
abroad. That's how people think. These ideals that we're speaking of, they're in our heads, and we're the ones who think. Many of the people who help us with dissipating our money without our consent don't think along those lines. If they thought even for a second along those lines, these problems we speak of wouldn't be at the magnitude that we keep seeing manifested every day.
Why is it then that by virtue of the fact that you walk into a particular door, and of course now we're talking about walking into the door of government or walking into the door of influence, that these and ideals change? Because you would think that before they did, they shared some of the same thoughts or ideals that we do, whereby you want the country to be better, you want it to move forward, you want these linkages from one country to the next, you want this idealism is rife. Does the ideals then change when now you enter into a particular office?
Yes, it's a club. It's a club membership. Remember, and you find new value systems, and you want to adhere to them. I mean, the best example I can give is think of the sort of company you keep. Go back to even school days. People who played a certain sport tended to hang out together just by virtue of that. People who were members of certain clubs, if the school had clubs, human beings do this all the time. Why do parliamentarians do the things they do? It's a club. And you will find that you want to live the life of a mheshimiwa. And the standards of that life, unfortunately, is not constant. But the only constant is that you need more.
Yeah.
That's the constant, all right? Now, if somebody's in government, now this person has access to money that the MPs can only dream of. So what does that mean? They're the ones who make the decisions, they're the ones who make the payments.
Yeah.
So you are thinking of, but surely the salary you're paid, all these things. No.
It's not enough.
I want to own a hotel in Dubai. It's not just a house now. Hotel.
It's a hotel.
I already have a house. I want a hotel. Okay? Who are you competing with? You want to be...
I want to own a street.
Precise. Eric, now you've got it.
What's a hotel? Why hotel?
And if he can afford it, why can't I just own an island?
Exactly.
And own the people who are in it while I'm at it. There's no end to it. This is the problem. There's no end to it. They keep wanting more and more and more. It seems ridiculous, but that is the biggest game that we have. And we see it playing out before our very eyes.
And many of us feel jealous because we're not the ones who have the opportunities.
Because had you been granted the opportunity to go and dig this thing until you get to the bottom, you would be there with the shovel and a pick.
Of course.
Consider the criticism that some of our political leaders have made against government over time. Some of these people are now in government at the county level. What are they doing different?
Nothing. Not much. 18 minutes after 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is A Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have C.T. Muga and Nduoko.
Online, on digital, and on radio. This is Spice FM. 96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So people in this country have come up with brilliant ideas, conceived brilliant projects.
And we do this all the time.
And we do this all the time. One of them is this one that we're talking about this morning. This is the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia Transport Corridor Project, LAPSET, which was conceived in the last administration, which the works has been ongoing for some time. The Lamu Port has been under construction. The work of rolling out the entire infrastructural project has been in the pipeline for long. And now this project has been adopted by the African Union.
Yes.
Because the AU sees the significance of this kind of project. It is linking one country to two other countries, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and opening up the economies of those two countries and giving them access to a port.
Thank
Important.
you. They are both landlocked.
Right.
You see, and their populations are vast. So if you just look at the dynamics, this would enable them to have access to a port.
If you look at the population of Ethiopia
Yes, and then look at
and South Sudan,
Sudan.
And the kind of...
It's a market. You just think about it. It's a huge market because that's what populations do. They provide a market. Now, if you have a port that can serve them, think, we already have a port that serves Rwanda, Uganda, okay? Now, you have another port that now serves the countries that heads towards the northeastern or the western part of the continent.
Yep.
Now, for a country, now I'm thinking selfishly about Kenya. Look at the benefit that Kenya would have. One, you shorten many things and you make available many things that these two countries previously did not have.
Yes.
And in opening up these two countries, you open the countries next to them like Central African Republic, and then you move further until you get into West Africa.
Yep.
This one is not even difficult to see. And again, it's opening up markets that Kenyans will benefit from very, very directly. But the short-sightedness of people who we are now referring to as cartels, for lack of a more descriptive word, okay?
Yeah.
It is not possible for something that began during the last administration. And you are now saying it's not even near completion, and this particular administration is coming to the end of its tenure.
One berth is about to be launched by the government in the next couple of days, right? So we've seen delegations going there. In fact, when the former Prime Minister was there, the AU High Representative for Infrastructure, Raila Odinga, was there. He was inspecting the progress that has been done. So the port is almost complete. One berth will be launched. Now, roads coming in, roads getting out. Are they done?
Non-existent.
No, they
Power.
don't exist.
Do we have power supply there? No. Why? One of the issues is one of the power projects that was mega power projects to be launched there has been halted. The Lamu coal power plant. Now, do we have roads? No, we don't have roads. Is this port ready to actually serve the region?
But is this thing
according
being
to the plan?
sabotaged? I mean,
It's clear.
Do you really need to? You don't need to be a clairvoyant to see this. Look, why am I saying this? We've had berths being built at the port of Kilindini.
Yeah.
They've been completed. What is so difficult about completing these ones?
Even the one in Kwale
Yes.
is almost complete.
Yes. What is it about this one? And this one was begun in the previous administration. Mombasa port just keeps opening new berths. You hear of it started, completed, a new one opened, completed. It's the same technology, or is it something that we don't know?
It seems to me that when we have some of these projects of which the promise is something great for the country and for the region, that then seems to be a hand of foul play that finds its way in here.
You're very polite. Thank you.
Yeah, I try to be diplomatic before 9 o'clock. If we look at it, it just seems to be always the case. Look at Tattoo City, for example, and what happened with that. Tattoo City, now, if anything, is a pipe dream, okay? Because, all right, it was great and everybody wanted to be part of and have a piece of the pie. And that's what we had coming to play.
There's some
Corruption
progress
came in
there,
at
but not
8,
the progress that the founders had in mind.
Not what they promised.
At this point in 2020.
Where we should have been with it is not the case. And look at the magnitude of potential that LAPSET has for the country, for the region. But somehow this worm of self-interest has found its way into the very root of this project. Unfortunately, that's what it is. If we're going to call a spade and not a big spoon, this is what it is, unfortunately. Because look at some of the things that are basic. You have a port The basic infrastructure that you need is roads. You don't have roads, that port is a lame duck. It's not going to be able to operate. Whatever you bring in, unfortunately, is not going to be able to leave. And what you're able to connect one country to the next, you don't have a transport highway. It's not going to happen. Northern corridor, southern corridor,
Nothing.
not going to be able to operate just because of this.
You know, many years ago, when this Kenya pipeline was set up, it's because there was a pipeline that was built, it existed, and it was pumping oil or fuel from the refinery we had in Mombasa to the many places that required it. A mega project. You know, the odd thing is that it actually works.
Yeah.
Not worked, works.
Works.
All right?
Only that now we don't have a refinery.
We moved backwards. It's something we also do very well. Yeah, it's one of these things that is uniquely Kenyan. We make progress, then we unprogress it. Yes, we just unravel it ourselves.
They came up with arguments. Oh, this refinery
It's
is
not
old.
it's old.
It's old. It's
Yeah.
going to cost us too much money to work on it. Let's be importing refined oil.
Have you heard such nonsense?
I can't. It's four.
We had a refinery, not we're building. We had one.
If you look at the Chinese, you know, we keep referring to China and the kind of progress that China made within a short time.
Yeah.
In the 10 years of Hu Jintao's presidency, what did they do in terms of infrastructure development?
Oh my goodness. I mean, if
Just
you just
creating railway system, a railway network that crisscrosses the country. In fact, now they are done with their own country. They said, now let's expand
Let's
this.
build for you.
Let's go back to the Silk Road and have a China global road and it's called what? The road and something network. It's belt. Road and belt network. Global. Revisit the entire Silk Road. Now we have self-actualized.
They've built
Our entire-
airports.
we can
The road
crisscross.
network is something. Well,
it's
you need
actually something
something
worth to behold.
Yes.
It actually is.
In basically, let's say 20 years, they've done it. We are already past 10 years since the launch of the LAPSET project.
We're still discussing it.
We are still at this point where we are discussing it. In fact, we are very happy because now the AU has adopted it. We adopted paper, not project, not said, oh yeah, the road, because now we have a dual carriageway between Lamu going all the way to Garissa and heading towards Isiolo. Now, in fact, the AU is already seeing the potential and saying, we support this project. What other help can we give you?
And you know what is of interest is that we do have an advantage. We do have an advantage because in terms of even infrastructure communication, Kenya is actually ahead of its neighbors. That is the truth of the matter.
Yep.
Now, this is an advantage that any smart country would take advantage of. You spoke about Germany and Helmut Kohl and the statements that he made about the country. These fellows understood that with the Marshall Plan, they were actually being given money to develop.
Yes.
They took it very seriously.
And they kept
And they
their
developed.
mouths
Shut. And they built that economy. That German economy is a powerhouse.
It is.
Understated because they don't go around shouting. But when you look at what comes out of it, you wonder, these fellows, in fact, in the EU, they are the strongest economy. Not if, but
They're the strongest.
Are
economy.
the strongest economy. And I
Yes.
think we see if they actually now began to do things on a global scale after they realized that they've been able to do it for themselves as a country. You give us the example many times about how they offered to come and build a university as well as
technical
put in
university.
all the infrastructure in this country. Offered.
They,
Come,
they
we'll do
just
it for you.
shopped of airlifting the entire university from Germany and bringing
bringing
it
it
and placing
here.
it here.
Yeah,
And then
use this.
then we started doing the Kenyan thing.
Want to add
entrepreneurs
how-
came in.
Entrepreneurs came in, man.
You know, I have a piece of land.
The crime enterprise.
I can sell the government this land.
No, actually, mine is cheaper, and it's on the other side.
It's on the other side of town.
The TVETs we speak of, applied sciences that we speak of, when you talk about the sort of developments that LAPSET brings,
Yep.
with an institution such as the one we spoke of, you would have a direct input into such a project
Yep.
because
Workforce comes
you
out
would have
straight.
that workforce.
This is what I'm saying. You want to be part of projects like this. I'm being prescriptive. I'm saying this is what you actually want to do. This is the medicine that you need.
Yeah.
Because what it does is that it opens up so many other doors. We're not talking education. We're not talking trade. We're not talking infrastructure. We're not talking about business development. We're talking so many things that will come as a result of this. Now, embracing that potential is where sometimes our legs get broken and we don't actually see that we could actually do much better than we're doing now.
No, we don't, because stealing is far more important than any of these things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's the faith that we have adopted. It's the religion that we have, and there's a God in there somewhere that we have taken as the supreme God whom we worship. There's no question about it, and it isn't a question. This one you just can't say, "Oh, the people at the top." No, Kenyans are thieves.
Say that again.
Kenyans are thieves. We are a nation of thieves.
Good morning, Kenyans. How are you doing? This is a situation. I'm not going to call you what you know who you are. I'm not going to call you anything. It's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, Eric Latif, and Nduoko. We're discussing the Lapset Corridor project. And of course, we know that recently the African Union adopted this project and said we want to be partner in this. We want to partner in this particular project. We see the importance of this project, not just for you, but for the opening up of Africa's economy. Now, at 8:30, let's take a look at what's happening on our small roads in the country.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
Well, the small roads seem to be bringing big problems this morning. There's been an accident right around the Kenyatta Avenue junction, so it's making it a tricky affair navigating the section. Of course, waiting for the police to show up there and hope to clear that up, but that's not happened yet. That should happen soon enough. All right, Likoni Road in industrial area is coming out of industrial area rather, is affecting the southern bypass and the Ole Sereni interchange, now trying to get out of there. Of course, we've heard previously that the Embakasi train has come ground to a halt this morning, and interestingly enough, the Syokimau train has joined the foray. So what was an issue with traffic on the roads is becoming a little bit more compounded because more people then require public transport, then making the traffic worse. This is what we have. Mombasa Road, of course, we know is a mess. Coming off of Thika Road, not so easy this morning. It's getting a little lighter off Waiyaki Way in Westlands. So looking around the city, we have some clogs. Hopefully we'll get out of it soon enough. Spice FM KE is where you can reach us on Twitter. Let's know what's going on as you call us on 0719 012 600.
96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning, and how are you doing? Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is The Situation Room. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga, Nduoko. We are discussing Lapset. Lapset, if you are new to Jerusalem, is the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia Transport Corridor Project. What does it entail? Lamu Port, 32 berths, deep sea port at Manda Bay, Lamu County. Highways, interregional highways from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Juba in South Sudan, Isiolo to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and Lamu to Garsen. Got that? Mm-hmm. Isiolo.
That's Kenya.
Isiolo to Juba, Isiolo to Addis, Lamu to Garsen. Pipelines, crude oil pipeline from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Juba, product oil pipeline from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Addis Ababa. All right? So crude oil coming in from Juba to Isiolo and then going down to Lamu. And then product pipeline coming from Lamu to Isiolo and then Isiolo to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Railway, there's a railway project. Interregional standard gauge railway lines from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Juba, Isiolo to Addis Ababa, and Nairobi to Isiolo. Isiolo basically is the center of this whole project. Airports, 3 international airports, 1 each at Lamu, Isiolo, and Lake Turkana. Resort cities, 3 resort cities, 1 each at Lamu, Isiolo, and Lake Turkana. Now, all those things that I've mentioned, what have you seen? The road from Lamu to Garsen is under construction now.
Okay.
The
Now-
Lamu, the Isiolo airport has been constructed. One of the berths in the port, deep sea port at Manda Bay, Lamu County, is due to be launched by the president. I think 1 or 2 or 3, I'm not sure, but a couple of berths are due to be launched. Everything else still on paper. This is Kenya.
Now, with any kind of project, of course, comes along project management, and I want to look at the timelines that the LabSet project had been given. I think it was 10 years to complete.
Yes, it's a long-term project, but at least it has some timelines. By now, we should have a lot of stuff that should have happened.
And unfortunately, we're looking at a place where certain things that would have been pertinent to this project then have actually not even begun.
Yes.
And I think it's then necessary to take a step back and have a look at the reasons as to why these have not been done. It could point to the fact of why we are then not, in terms of moving forward, even in terms of bilateral agreements rather that have been had, or even multilateral agreements that have been had nation to nation.
This is Kenya.
Where there are thieves, I understand.
No. You're complicating a very simple...
Too many things for a simple thing.
This one, the agreements were signed in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
These things you're speaking of, signed in 2012.
Right.
The blueprint that Eric is talking about was part of what was being signed into. It was understood. These things have been understood for the longest time.
Exactly. Upon which now I'm building and saying, look, all of these things were signed and done. It's for us to then take a step back and then look, if we're going to say we're going to solve this problem, because this is not just a LabSet problem. If we look around, then you will see very many other things that bear the same resemblance, or at least have some of the very same factors.
Not things. Just ask, who's in charge of this?
This is the thing. And why then do
And
we
why
have
is that person
this problem?
still in that job?
Every single
Why
time.
haven't they been arrested? Why hasn't the anti-corruption come in to ask them why this thing is stolen?
Why is this stolen?
Yes, and who preceded this person? And then let's do a lifestyle audit on these individuals who've been in charge of these LabSet projects. And let's see if their lifestyles correspond with their salaries and whatever else they seem to claim that they have been able to do. Grow cucumbers or whatever it is they've been growing or selling eggs. Whatever it is, whatever, quails, whatever it is that they're doing to raise this extra money that enabled them to have the lifestyle they have.
It correlates, yes.
Yes, exactly. When we are going around with this BBI and talking about changing the constitution, the things that they must do, these laws that relate to people who have committed economic crimes, it must be enacted, because it is not that this country does not have enough money. We do. It is not that
Even goodwill from international partners.
we do.
For example, the Japanese and the Chinese, and now we're talking about the African Union.
They want
There's a
to see. They
queue
want
of
to see this kind of
people
thing, this
would like to
development,
be
and
in
they're
this
ready
queue.
to put their financial and regional muscle behind projects like this and say, "Let's go, folks." But we are not the ones with the key in the ignition. We're ready to go.
Yeah,
Put the key, turn it.
Do.
We are ready to go along
With
with
all
you.
this bad news we keep talking about here, the number of investors who not want to come, who come to this country, and then the ones who want to come, there's a queue. To understand it, just pause for a second and ask yourself, there's something that alarmingly has grown. Investors into the education sector.
Yep.
Some of our prime education institutions in the private sector have been bought out by outsiders.
Yep.
Bought by other education institutions elsewhere.
Coming in.
Buying. Really serious high-end schools. Many other projects in this country have people coming in. I know for the longest time people have assumed, as I've told you this before, that Equity Bank is a Kenyan bank. It isn't. It isn't. It's owned by a British Equity Bank. Believe me, they wouldn't have bothered to buy that bank if they didn't know that there was money. These are people
Money
who
to be made.
understand how to buy and sell money.
Investors behind it.
They understand. These are sharp people who understand how to make money. They are crowding to come into the country. You think they're mad? They're not mad.
Of course not.
And this is against all these stories that we keep hearing.
All the nonsense.
Right,
that we-
because fortunately, because they've seen end to end, they understand that actually, even though it is fueled by self-interest, because really, where is it not, right?
The bottom line.
However, but everybody is going, in this case, everybody benefits.
Yeah.
And we say, look, here we are and ready to say, come on, guys, let's do this thing. Let's go forward and do this thing. Why are we holding up this train? Let's move forward in terms of this. But then again, The desire for personal riches that this thievery brings about supersedes the desire to see any kind of progress moving forward, unfortunately.
Now, you know-
and this is the thing. Who are these individuals? Why are they still there?
Identify them and shoot them. You know, when this thing was actually conceptualized, you see, every time we're mentioning any of these projects, we'll go into Isiolo. Isiolo this, the roads end up at Isiolo. Railway terminates at Isiolo. Pipeline goes to Isiolo. Resort City, Isiolo. Airport, Isiolo. Isiolo is such a central place in this
Isiolo
entire
actually
project.
is central.
It's the central point of the Republic of Kenya.
If you know how it's situated, it is very
It's in
central.
the middle of Kenya.
Yes, it's actually very central.
Not middle of nowhere. Middle of Kenya.
Yes.
Currently, people think Isiolo is in the middle of nowhere.
It isn't.
Now, when
it
this
isn't.
criminal enterprise heard this, I heard the stories of how people have moved into Isiolo
And bought it up.
tracts of land. All right, so it's okay. It's business is
Willing buyer, willing seller,
business
yeah.
will follow where opportunity is. It's okay. Then we have an Isiolo airport, international airport that was constructed. It's complete. Isiolo International Airport. How many flights are coming in and out of Isiolo International Airport today?
Not that I
International.
know of.
What they required, of course, is everything else to be working so that this airport works. So what is important? Roads. If the road from Lamu towards Isiolo is not complete by now, if the road from Lamu to Garsen is not complete, what are we talking about this entire infrastructure project? Those are highways. Lamu to Garsen. Lamu to Isiolo. Then from Isiolo, we'll go into Nairobi. We'll go into Addis Ababa. We'll go into Juba. We'll have a railway system doing the same thing. We have a port a pipeline system doing the same thing. And here we are. We still talk about LAPSET. We get excited, that, the African Union is seeing the potential. And of course, now people in that office will be sitting there and saying, you see, even the AU has seen our potential. This thing is going to be big. 12 years later, we are still saying this thing is going to be big. What is this?
Whereas it could have actually been
What is this?
completed.
By the way,
It
when
We should be
have-
having a lot of progress, even if not completed.
this is 8 years down the line, surely. 8 years down
Even
the
if
line.
not complete, we should be having a lot of progress.
8 years is a long time.
In
It
addition, going hand in hand with the completion of a few berths of the port, because you can say dredging or coming up with a new port in a place that didn't have a port took a lot of work. Sawa. But roads, road to Garsen, road towards Isiolo, this is not something that we have not done before. We've done roads before. We do roads every day in this country. Road from Lamu to Isiolo, Lamu to Garsen. Seen any? Okay, let's talk about SGR. SGR is going to be another one of those things that, we have to spend a lot of money, just like we have done in Nairobi to Mombasa. Okay, forget about that. So we have a pipeline that is going to take the crude oil from Juba towards this port, so that this port is busy.
Oh, nothing.
Hii Kenya isimame tushuke.
Yes.
That SGR, get off that train,
tuachie
folks.
wenyewe.
Tuachie wenyewe.
Yes.
We just move.
If you consider that the Thika highway took 5 years. Am I getting my timeline right?
Yes, you are actually.
How long is that highway?
Oh, wow.
How many kilometers is it?
Poof. We need to find out exactly how many.
about
but
40.
It was quite,
40.
Yeah. It's about 40
Precisely.
kilometers, yeah.
40. Okay, this road network that we're speaking around, okay, I think you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah,
one,
it's thousands of kilometers. I mean, it's in the thousands of kilometers that we're looking at. So what was it
isn't.
indicative?
Isiolo to Lamu, it doesn't matter how you go around it, it will not be thousands of kilometers.
It will not be.
Oh, just look. I mean, if we're looking at it combined, if we're looking at
There's a reason
Isiolo,
why I'm
Lamu,
making this question.
the entire network
I'm
is in
looking
thousands. Yeah.
at the Thika super highway in terms of the lanes it has. Okay? 4 on this side, 4 on that side.
And
Essentially,
the services, yes.
and the service road. So you're talking about 10 roads in total.
Yep.
If you consider that it's 40 multiplied by 10, that's around 400 kilometers of road. If
Yep.
you're talking about the simple road that would be talking about going towards those places.
So you're saying it's going to take us 50?
I am saying it is ridiculous that something as complex as the Thika highway
It could take us
takes 5
it could
years.
take us 5 years to do 400 kilometers.
Yeah.
No, I am simply saying that it's not the time factor that I'm talking about. If in 5 years we could build that,
Something like that.
5 years, And this is because we had one contractor. The way they build roads is they give different contractors different sections.
Different
of the road-
sections,
of
yes.
the road with the same specs. Meaning you're all building it at the
the same time.
So it's not as though you finish and then you move. You more or less finish at the same time. You could have that time when it comes to building it. I'm not an engineer, but I don't need to be one to understand that there are ways of completing projects quickly. Now, the point is, there seems to be no will to actually do this thing quickly. The will seems to be talk about budgets, talk about figures, talk about what's needed.
First, align
yes.
your personal interests.
Oh,
and
sorry,
then,
Eric. Sorry,
No, you
Eric.
have to start from the beginning. They have to start from the real beginning.
Thank you.
That's the beginning.
Thank you. Put your ducks in a row.
Yes.
Yes. But you see, until and unless even our judiciary take this matter seriously, they join the DPP and the DCI in this and take this matter seriously. So, and our MPs also ensure that when we legislate, some of the punishments that you met out to because this is crime against humanity. How can you have major projects? Kibaki was president for 10 years. And his presidency had issues, serious issues before it even took place. This current presidency has had issues, but it has to do with elections. After that, when it was sorted out, people have moved on.
People have moved on rather swiftly.
And they had a platform from which to build, meaning certain things had been
Already
put right.
been done. The foundations had already been set.
Yes.
So all they needed to do was continue.
Then these guys have gone and rewound the clock for us. Yeah, that's what they've done. They've rewound the clock for us. We're now back to the stage, a stone age. Things that should have been done, things were done, even things which were done, they have gone and undone them.
Something like the LAPSAT project had been launched before Kibaki left, right? The Konza ICT Technopolis had been launched before Kibaki left. Very many of these projects, if you let's look at it and wonder, so where is the problem here? What is it that needs to move so that you can move?
The thieves. Literally, bodies need to move. Literally, bodies need to move in order for us. Get the garbage out of the way so that we can focus.
Let's get your reactions and insights into this. We're discussing the LAPSAT project, what's happening and what's not happening on this particular project. Opening up the phone lines now, 0719-012-600. You can also post in your comments on Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter, as well as YouTube channel. Good morning. 14 minutes to 9.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
What is the LAPSAT Corridor Program? The LAPSAT Corridor Program is East Africa's largest and most ambitious infrastructure project, bringing together Kenya, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. This mega project consists of 7 key infrastructure projects, starting with the 32-berth port at Lamu, interregional highways from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Juba, Isiolo to Addis Ababa, Lamu to Garsen, crude oil pipeline from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Juba, product oil pipeline from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Addis Ababa, interregional SGR from Lamu to Isiolo, Isiolo to Juba, Isiolo to Addis Ababa, Nairobi to Isiolo, 3 international airports, 1 each, Lamu, Isiolo, Lake Turkana, 3 resort cities, 1 each, Lamu, Isiolo, Lake Turkana, the multipurpose High Grand Falls Dam along the Tana River. This is an ambitious project, big project. Like it's been billed as, what they've said themselves is East Africa's largest and most ambitious infrastructure project.
And the way our people see it, they see all the money.
The largest pot.
They look at the amount of money that can come in.
Things are ripe for the picking.
And the amount of money that can be stolen.
Largest cookie jar.
So, as you said, put your ducks in a row, get these moving. But I want to pause and say something. Surely, the government knows this thing better than we do. And surely with all this hype about fighting corruption, there must be something that they're doing that we don't know.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that...
You choose not to
No,
believe.
no. I cannot
You actually
believe,
can't.
I can't believe that someone in leadership like the president will sit back and just watch all these things taking place unless he is involved and just sit back knowing the consequences and then talking about a legacy and talking about all... No. I think something must be happening. It's just we don't know. So maybe having shot all these people in my mind, let me now move. It's all in my mind. Let me now move on to the next phase and ask the question, what has the government done really?
But before you go there, we're getting to a place whereby in the next, from all indications, we're getting to the place in the next 20 years, we're still going to be talking about LAPSET and what huge potential it has for Kenya and the huge potential that it also bears for the region. We're going to be talking about it for some time. To see the fruits of this project seems like it's going to be a gut-wrenching exercise. To say that we will actually see trade happening within the region, we're going to invite more trade from outside the region to see that the indigenous people are actually going to see places whereby their products can get from farm to market. We're going to see that education has been affected as a result of this. We're going to see that the infrastructure in the region has been developed as a result of this.
Let's go to the phone lines.
Is this a dream?
Let's go to the phone lines. Patrick, good morning.
Hello. Good morning. How are you?
Good
Fine,
morning.
thank you.
I love the discussions that you guys are holding on there.
Yes,
Thank
Sante?
The issues that are affecting the country all across. And right now you're talking about LAPSET, is it?
Yes.
I want to say one thing that is very simple. The ball rolls and starts with leadership. And I'll give you examples across the world whereby countries have had problems and you have substantive leaders come in and they fix the problem. There's a very good example I like with the president of Indonesia. Remember when this country had a problem with drugs and the populations and the youth were being affected completely across the country.
Yep.
This guy came in and fixed the problem. He dealt with the cartels. He dealt with the people who came in and were bringing drugs through the port. And the problem was...
Patrick, I think we are losing you. You're referring to President Duterte of the Philippines, right?
Exactly. And across the country, across the world, I'll give examples of leadership who have come in and fix the problem.
His line is a problem.
I think that we have a problem with your line, Patrick. Please call back, Patrick. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We're taking your views on the LAPSET project, the LAPSET corridor project. We know now that the AU has said this is a very good project. The AU High Representative for Infrastructure, Raila Odinga, was there and representing the AU office and said this is something that actually can work. And this is in the new... what's it called? The what?
This is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Yes, Africa Continental Free Trade Area. They've said this is something that's good. And of course, it's because they're looking at the number of countries that are going to be impacted by this. Kenya, South Sudan, Ethiopia, two large landlocked countries with huge potential of using this port and basically also benefiting the country, our own country.
Whose brainchild was LAPSET?
Whose brainchild was it? As in which country or which individual?
Both.
Kenya.
Exactly. So, I mean, here we are again. We come up with a fantastic idea just recently, as though we needed the endorsement of the AU to say that it was a fantastic idea, but it has come anyway. And it was clear that this was a great idea. And still, even with that, and I come back to this thing that, are we going to be in the next 20 years sitting and saying, at some point there was this great thing called LAPSET.
I don't think
And this
so.
is what it could
This
have
thing
done.
was beautiful. It
was a
have been
fantastic
amazing.
idea. It would have been
Man.
great. But then
Go
it
back to the phone lines.
joins other projects on the dusty shelves.
We'll
that
look
have not
back
been
and
completed.
we'll be talking about a country that started with us a couple of years down the road.
But-
Blackwater in Mombasa. Good morning.
Morning, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy
Hi,
New Year,
Blackwater. How
Blackwater.
are you?
I figured I have to jump into this, right?
Yes. you've done
And
well.
I think on this situation, right, we go back to what the poet said, the young man King Kaka, Wajinga Sisi.
Yep.
And my recommendation is I think I've seen about 6 or 7 of different poems like this. I think when you bring up topics like this, you need to just play these poems. Sometimes people are so busy they don't have time to think, but they will listen. just like we listen to this show every day.
Yep.
Play such poems every morning. Let people listen. You know, maybe that might wake these our leaders up, because I think they're getting away with something, and they know it. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very
All
much,
right.
Blackwater.
Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome. And what happened to our yellow lady? She's not there.
She's not with us this week.
Oh, okay, this week. Okay,
Yes.
okay. It's 2 weeks now. I'm counting.
Yeah,
Yes.
keep counting. Thank you, Blackwater.
All right, cheers, guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We are asking for your opinion on this particular project, the LabSet.
Why don't we give this thing a historical perspective, all right? This LabSet, if you want to understand it, look at our sessional papers and the development of institutions that Kenyans keep talking about that were borrowed by Singapore, Malaysia, to name 2 countries, and which they put into practice and then grew to become what they are. This Kenya School of Administration, all these institutions that we have here that we take for granted, some of these venerable leaders that people speak about, actually, they didn't send people, they came themselves.
Could I ask you to pause?
I will pause.
All right, pause. So we can go to Mombasa and hear from Rotich. Rotich, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy
New Year, Rochich.
We haven't talked this year.
Yes.
No, we haven't.
Karibu sana.
Yes, I like the discussion that revolves around an infrastructural development that the previous regime then came up with the idea, and they talked to these other countries to buy the idea. Now, you see, one thing that clearly comes out is that the previous regime had the best in this when coming up with this project, but they handed over this project got handed over to some clueless fellows. Yes, that are just full timers, campaigners, and what have you. I'm sorry to use that word, but
Don't be sorry.
that word, but that's my view as a citizen of this country.
How do we
Because-
revive this project?
It's just a matter of borrowing from what our neighbor country, Tanzania's leadership does.
Yep.
Being the leader, President Pombe Magufuli is a hands-on person. He inspects projects. He even questions projects. This is the project, the ongoing project, unannounced.
Yep.
Just to get what is going on the ground. It's not about sitting on the ivory tower and doing some other things and not realizing some other projects are going south.
Yeah, on the ground.
And
Ground
on the
vitu ni
ground,
different.
vitu ni different kabisa. And one thing that is plaguing us is this corruption issue. What should happen is what the other day presidency was telling the police force: do not transfer rogue police personnel or whatever, fire them.
Yep.
The same goes to supervisors
public
and
officers.
executioners of this. Yes, public officers, and especially who are in charge of such projects.
Yep.
Right.
You
Because
don't perform,
in
you go.
Yeah, you don't perform, you go. Actually, that is what is happening in the private sector. That is why institutions in the private sector are doing well, because if you don't deliver, there are certain key performance indicators that are there, evaluations and what have you. You don't perform.
Because it's all hinged on performance.
Step aside.
Yes, you just ship out.
Ship out. Thank you very much. Thank you
Yes,
very much,
completely.
Rotich. We understand that you are in a cab and you had to park by the side so that you can talk to us.
Definitely.
Asante sana, and have a good one. Have a good day.
You too, guys.
Asante.
Cheers. That's interesting because it's all linked to look, and we've drawn parallels between them. Why I've asked ourselves so many times, then why does the private sector do so well? And this is the thing; it's linked to performance, and it's very simple in this
And
case.
whether it's private sector in this country,
Yeah.
we're talking about another country.
No, just in this country.
Same country.
Same
Same
country,
country.
same kinds, breed,
Same-
individuals,
same-
right?
Same water.
Same.
Same water drunk, same food eaten, right? Same practices being upheld.
Same roads.
But then you have to ask yourself, exactly, still operating within the same kind of
Same.
infrastructure that is
Same.
being used by the public sector. So it is because it is linked to performance, and it's very simple. No dramatic, and I keep saying, even this rocket science that we keep talking about, somebody has been able to
by
crack
the
it,
way-
and they went on a rocket.
By the way,
Somebody figured even that stuff
Rocket
out.
science is not difficult.
No.
Somebody, and human being also
By-
figured that one
by
out.
the way, I think even what we're discussing is based on performance.
That's exactly the
No,
thing.
no, the thievery.
Even that.
Yes, it's performance based.
How
Because
well you're
if you're
able
not
to do
stealing
and
enough,
get
if
away
if you're
with
not
it.
stealing enough,
Yeah.
you'll not survive.
If you look
here.
at the frequency and the amounts involved, it's like there's a competition. It's like
This is what you got from what
you
you're able to
pipeline
steal.
guys don't know what we're doing.
Now let me show you.
So KRSA, let us show you how this
How
thing
to
is
do
done.
this.
Get out of here.
Just when you think Treasury comes and says,
You guys think
who do you
you
think
got it.
controls this money?
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Well, we are broadcasting from Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. We are also in Lamu on Spice FM KE Facebook, Spice FM KE Twitter, and Spice FM KE YouTube. Also on www.spicefm.co.ke. Coming up to the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. And then we come out of that. We shift gears a little bit and go and look at some of the rich people in this continent. People have money. If you're broke, shauri yako. There are people who know how to make money. They started small, started from the ground. Now they're here. Good morning. 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I know. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay, Langata Road.
Nairobi.
This is the problem. We finally be able to figure out what has been going on there. There have been 2 accidents that have taken place, and that is why you're not able to get off that road as quickly as you would have anticipated earlier on. Thika Road is still a bit tricky this morning. You leave from the Kasarani area, and by the time you get to Garden City, you're absolutely stuck. Coming past the Utali Drift, you might then be able to make your way slowly towards the Pangani Underpass and then into the city centre using the Globe Cinema roundabout, of course, and then also using Limuru Road as an option. You can get out into the city a little bit quicker if you use that. The eastern and southern bypasses this morning, unfortunately, are clogged. Westlands, the current state of Convent Road in Lavington, both ways. Everybody's running away and using James Gishuru, and that is why we have the heavy traffic that we are experiencing there. Kiambu Road, not too much. Mombasa Road, of course, we're getting out of traffic hour shortly, and it'll take us a shorter while to get into the city centre or wherever else you may go. That's what it looks like right now. Spice FM KE. Give us a shout on Twitter. Give us a call on 0719 012 600. Let's see if we can keep moving. Half an hour, let you know what it looks like if you're planning on leaving or not.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
When one conversation ends, it continues on social media platforms. Another conversation begins right here in the studio. And of course, it also joins the other conversations on the social media platforms. At 2.5 minutes to 9 o'clock, let's have a new conversation.
Right, so one name has been in international headlines for the last couple of weeks, and more heatedly so in the last few days. Isabella dos Santos is the oldest daughter of former Angola president Jose Eduardo dos Santos. And of course, she is known as Africa's richest woman with a net worth of about $2 billion. Now, over time, it has been said that she has acquired or amassed this wealth because of certain nods in her direction when her father was president of the country for the 38 years that he was. Of course, she was schooled in the United Kingdom, where she currently resides. And she has, of course, from the sectors that her wealth is said to have been amassed, we're looking at banking, we're looking at the diamonds, we're looking at oil, and of course we're looking at telecoms, where she owns several companies. Now, if you want to look at the length and breadth of her riches, we're talking about some serious stuff, folks, here. Isabella dos Santos, of course, in partnership with her husband, who is a Congolese art collector, as what we've liked to be told, is that we're looking about 94 different companies owned in different countries around the world. Of course, she has companies where in certain countries that are known as tax havens, we're looking at 49 different subsidiaries of different countries. Of course, this means that her wealth is spread not just in Angola, but of course around the world. And when we look at her assets, the profits that she's been able to make have been quite something. Over time, the questions have, of course, arisen. And now it is seen that current president of the Republic of Angola, Mr. João Lourenço, is now asking questions. And they've put forth an inquiry into just how much money this woman has, number one, but have pointed it to the fact that a lot of this money was gotten from the public coffers of the state of Angola. And now we know that Angola is rich in mineral resources, namely diamonds and oil. And of course, it is said that basically the country was mortgaged at the behest of this family. And this woman was given a lot of what she has been able to get as a result of the nods that she got from her father. She didn't do this alone, though, did she? She was given guidance. She was given a lot of buffering, a lot of support. And interestingly enough, the people who are pointing the fingers now are actually some of those individuals, or rather those companies from where these countries, from where they hail from, are the ones who actually offered this support in the time when she was amassing her wealth. And I'm saying that if we look at where there's an African economic crime, we will always often find that there is a Western consulting firm who has helped out with this. And we actually have to probably screw our lens a little bit more and focus it and say, when these fingers come up pointing, there is somebody behind it all who helped all along. Now, the money that Dos Santos has is not stuff for the birds, okay? This is some serious cash. This is some serious wealth. This woman has been able. $2 billion is what her net worth is. That's what she's worth. We're not talking about the turnover now from her companies and what they continually turn over day to day. We're talking about if this woman were to leave it all today, she would have $2 billion that she would be able to basically, live off of for the rest of however long. Now, it's interesting because she says that she has been able to amass this wealth as a result of hard work. Her father put into them the attributes of hard work from a very young age. And she too, like other people that we've heard, started selling eggs at the age of 6 years old on the streets of Luanda in Angola. So she understands the value of hard work and actually started this a very long time ago. So she's actually...
Did you get that city?
She's confused.
The eggs.
Eggs.
6 years.
Draw some parallels. 6 years old, eggs, streets, Luanda, Angola. All right?
Eggs.
Yes. So she understands.
From eggs to 2 billion.
She understands.
She hadn't heard of cucumbers, had she?
No.
Okay.
Eggs seems to be the thing that gets people wealth.
Maybe one of them.
94. Maybe one of these
94.
companies is a huge poultry. It seems to be the thing that gets people a lot of their wealth.
Poultry.
Yes. It seems to be the go-to thing for wealth on this continent.
Eggs.
Yes. Shall we say it one more time for good measure?
Yeah, I just want to repeat it. Eggs.
The wheels of your mind are churning then in terms of what
I'm
then you can
thinking,
do.
So every time I eat eggs, I'm eating wealth.
Yeah.
Every morning here.
Yes.
You're giving
Imagine.
you're giving somebody more money. All right.
Carry
So the investigations have started. A couple of weeks ago, they were looking at freezing her assets. And of course, the courts and now this is an inquiry that has now been championed by the governor, or rather the government of Angola. And previously they tried to freeze her assets to pave way for investigations, and the courts in Angola said, no, well, we don't have any just cause or reason why we should do this. But as the investigations have heated up a little bit more, and of course the calls for this have heated up a little bit more, finally as of this week then, the order has been given for her assets to be frozen. What is interesting though, that as she amassed all this wealth over time, there were two firms that were actually quite pivotal in how she was able to amass this wealth. They gave her advice and support in terms of what she was able to do, namely PwC and KPMG. Were able to tell her, look, this is the way to go about it, my friend. If you want to get layman terms, if you want to get this money and hide it, if you want to be able to get this money, these are the tax havens where you need to deposit the money. These are the shell companies, or these are the secret depositories where you need to then go and operate your business. We're giving you this advice. This is where, of course, they made a pretty penny from this advice that they gave her. Now, at this point in time, they're also going to be used by the investigation as witnesses, because we're looking at 750,000 documents that then have now been produced. And guess who has produced some of these documents? The same two firms who supported her and helped her amass this wealth and even showed her where to hide her money. Their input or their role cannot be forgotten in all of this. Is she going to go down? Is she going to be jailed for these economic?
Angola.
Of course
she was
not.
investing this money in some of the other countries.
46 countries around the world is where her money has been invested.
Lisbon, London, where else?
Malta,
Paris,
Mauritius, all around the world, her money has been invested. Companies operating, storefront companies.
You need to bring in Hong Kong also.
Hong Kong is actually one of them. Storefront offices basically been given a face without now saying what the real operations of the company are. Now, we're looking at whistleblowers in Africa, the platform to protect whistleblowers in Africa, shared with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, because they're the ones who came up with this report now that has caught the world by storm in terms of what really happened. And we're looking at layers and layers of some thick stuff, folks. This lady is not this lady is not
Why
just...
are they focusing on her? Is she the only person who happens to have a background or a father who was
in this country?
No. I am simply saying, even on this continent, let's not go to some other continent. Are we saying that she is the only person who has acquired wealth in the manner that they're suggesting she has?
I think what's part of what is eating Isabella dos Santos is because she took on a public profile. Okay? That she came all out to show, I have worked hard.
Unfortunately,
she did work hard.
I deserve this. So she has a public profile. And because of that public profile, now people are coming back to ask, so, okay,
how did you actually get this money?
All along, we knew that you're the president's daughter. Of course, we could see that when the president appoints you to head the country's oil company, and oil is one of the main sources of revenue for the country.
Second largest producer of oil on the continent.
When the president when your father makes you the head of this, and then you're still rich, are your companies trading with this state corporation? Yes, they are. So, of course, the questions will emerge, and they are very easy to answer. Because you can see, this is a public profile, this is what she showed us, this is what she's doing, this is where she was investing, other places that she was hiding, we can trace back and see this is where she was investing, while at the same time, the current president has unleashed the dogs. That's
and
the
of course,
problem.
this is a thing that
the
she has
current
called...
president has decided, you know what, let's go back and look at everything that Jose Eduardo dos Santos and his family did.
Because, of course, now it has arisen and it has come to public knowledge that, a lot of the money that was taken from public coffers then actually did not, for what they said were investments internationally, then actually did not come and translate in any kind of profit or any kind of monetary gain for the country. And interestingly enough, with such, huge deposits of mineral resources, the country is still, unfortunately, one of the poorest. When we look at now the people, one of the poorest in the world. Now, that wealth that they have in mineral resources can then not be translated or there is no trickle down effect to the people.
That's the chink, because
that's
grinding poverty. I mean, these are poverty levels that are
inexplicable,
extraterrestrial. Not just your average, garden variety poverty.
No.
Someone missed a meal a day. No. And then you talk about illiteracy, widespread, infant mortality, they lead. Now, with that sort of wealth, if this is a new level of moral repugnancy.
Yeah.
And whatever
And
he
we
did,
still are able to call it, the curse of the natural
colonial-
resources.
yeah.
The curse of the natural
No, it's not
resources.
no,
It's
there's
a
no
curse.
curse.
there's
This
no
is
curse
direct
in this
theft.
case. This is just
There's
direct
no-
theft,
yes,
unfortunately.
there's no curse.
And this is the thing, that the country was bled dry over 38 years. Eduardo dos Santos was at the helm of the presidency. He sat there for 38 years. Can you imagine? They
What
cut here,
madness.
bleed it dry. Cut here, bleed it dry. Cut here, bleed it dry. We had them, and it's not hidden. There are pictures of her. We had them auctioning the diamonds of the country in Cannes, in France, over and over again. They would take $120 million worth of diamonds and put them up for public auction in Paris, and then come back and say, well, from this exercise, we only got about $5.8 million. Several occasions, this being done, portraying, they would use the world's celebrities to basically auction away the country. And that is what they succeeded in doing. Now, the current president had basically said, you know what I'm dealing with here, like you said, extraterrestrial poverty, what I'm dealing with here, somebody's got to answer for it. Because what I see in terms of what the potential that the country has and what we should be able to do is not translating. We're not able to reconcile this thing. So somebody's got to ask
If
some
we go just
questions.
slightly south and you go to Botswana, they also have
They have the diamonds also.
But look at that country. Look at the healthcare system. Look at the social services.
The CAM has decided, well, let's run it a bit differently.
Yes. Or why don't we move away from there and look at what Gaddafi did before all the problems that befell Libya?
Even with the problems that he was facing globally,
Yes.
what he was
What
doing.
he was
for
able
his
to
people.
do for his
Oil,
people.
Same oil thing. If you look at why don't we look at Malaysia, for instance? They also have the same thing. Now, the Malay are not that many in number. But if you look at what Mahathir Mohamad did, first for the Malay and then did for Malaysia, they have had some very serious corruption. But these stories we hear on this content, you don't hear. No. The health systems work. The education system works. People get employment. Things are done. So even when there's theft, remember this is a man who retired and then came out of retirement just to sort out things which were wrong in the country. But you can see what can be done when the resources are used well. You can still be rich, and your countrymen do not need to be in the sort of situation that they are in.
This is the thing that I'm saying. You want to make it better for everybody else.
You don't have to go and be called the richest person.
What for?
What for? Why do you need $2 billion
Actually,
and all that?
Even as we say this, a billion is something we just talk about and
$1
read.
billion.
To acquire it, so let's just badmouth it. Now, what do you need $2 billion for?
What do you want take and do?
It's useless.
What
It's
do you
of
want
no
take and
use
do?
to you.
Give us.
It's 9:15. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're discussing Isabella dos Santos. She is the eldest daughter of former president of Angola, Jose Eduardo dos Santos. Now, all the spotlight globally is on her. How did she amass so much wealth? She was once touted as Africa's richest woman.
Still is.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Yes! I knew it! It will work!
What's the excitement all about? Did you get the job?
I feel good! I feel good!
Please.
Yes!
Mato, what is it? Share the happiness, boss.
With Mozart Bet, hakuna cha kuchomeka. To register with Mozart Bet today, SMS SPICE to 29990. Mozart Bet, make a decision. Mozart Bet is authorized and regulated by the Betting Control and Licensing Board, number BK0000135. Terms and conditions apply. For 18 years and above.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise! Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Is there a way we can give her the benefit of the doubt? So
No.
yes,
To do
you
what?
are the president's daughter.
No.
Yes, but
No.
yeah, but
Eric, there's
but
no.
you're appointed to a certain
No.
position in office. But
No.
then also at the same time, you're
Eric,
married
no.
to somebody who
No.
understands business.
Eric,
Let
actually,
me finish. Let me finish.
He was a Congolese art collector.
Yes.
He understands business, and so
Understands
therefore,
business, and you also understand business.
we can't.
Your mother understands business.
These things
So
that
you have
Jose
run
Eduardo dos
business.
Santos did for his daughter were not hidden from public light.
Of course.
He nodded in her direction and said, "Yes, contract, take, go. Contract, take, go. Business, take, go. Have." Just basically at will. Whatever was
It is
meant
what CT was saying.
whatever was meant
Was
to
the company
translate down to
qualified
the
or not
people.
qualified?
Go ahead. No, you see, in this case, it was wanton. It was wanton.
Should we be denying her this opportunity just because she's the president's daughter?
Omo, do you see the kind of money that she has been able to make out of this thing?
And
Do you understand what we're talking about here?
And this is the poverty in her
Omo
country.
washing, Omo the river.
Omo is now you.
Omo is me.
You're being referred to. Your nickname for this conversation is Omo. So you, Omo, listen, pay attention. Eric Omo.
Okay.
To understand the magnitude of what we're talking about here? In the last 20 years, you've been able to bleed a country dry.
Not me.
No,
No,
we're
no,
talking
no,
now.
no.
Isabella now.
The president.
Isabella and her father. In this case,
Eric has
Eric
jumped.
today he said it's not me.
No, him is figured now.
Yeah,
See,
well.
Abana, where people are being called Omo.
Bleeding a country dry. Maybe.
Surely. What?
And then
I don't even have enough blood myself.
and then Forbes will even carry you nicely, paste you there on the cover and say, yes, Africa's richest woman. KPMG will help you all along and show you this is, in fact, you know what? You want to make more money or you want to understand where to hide your money? These are the countries where you should do that. These are the sectors where then you should invest this money in. They're not asking you where you got it. They're not asking you if the process with which
Because
through
all
which
those,
you
all
got
those
it was
companies.
clean.
Listen,
That one is not their business.
This is why I was saying maybe we need to give her some benefit of the doubt.
For
this
what?
multinational, this big companies.
Oh, they're the
swear-
ones who deceived her.
No. Not that they deceived her.
Eric,
They
carry on.
also conduct due diligence before they deal with somebody, especially somebody with this kind of profile. They know it could bring down their organization, so they do some due diligence and see exactly where have you acquired, how have you acquired your wealth. Is there a way that we can see that this is as a result of this kind of business activity and the other, and maybe they pass it and said, yes, maybe what you got is at the very beginning you were given some push by your father. But beyond that, you have actually acquired this wealth properly.
Sorry. But you know what? Above and beyond all of this, the first thing they see is the kaching. Sorry. The first thing they see is that, oh, okay, we're able to advise in one way or another. By the
Against
time-
their own reputation? I don't think so. These
Are
big
they not the ones?
companies...
Are they not the ones being called out now? They are the ones being called out now. As far as this investigative piece has gone, their names are
being
still
called
there.
out. They are being
Their
called
names
out
are
and
still
they've been
there.
called as witnesses, and they're coming in to say, yes, we actually conducted our due diligence. This person, in as far as this particular business is concerned, when somebody has come to... Why haven't they touched all the
But they're
despots
now
in the
in
world?
they're now in a position to absolve themselves
All the
in terms
despots
of
and what are the other names? City despots and
Malcontent.
yes.
Yes.
Everybody else in the world, they don't touch them. They basically go and look and see,
You
this
know,
one is clean.
This
We
would
can
make
do
sense,
business with this
Eric,
one
and
because this
Eric,
will not bring us down.
Eric, I might actually agree with you,
if
except we have a precedent that we cannot run away from. 2001, there was a scandal of a company called Enron.
Yep.
And what turned out was that their books had been cooked. Now, what makes it worse? There was an audit company known, one of the biggest audit firms in the US. It was called Arthur Andersen.
Yeah.
They were responsible directly, not indirectly. Okay, they didn't go. There was no lab
They were
set.
the one
There
holding
was
the
no lab
spoon.
set. Okay, there were no dams. Okay, direct. They cooked the books.
For Enron.
Yes, company went down. That particular audit firm also went down. Now, with such a history, and it isn't the only time we've had this happening.
Yeah.
We've had cases where companies that are supposed to be beyond reproach actually coming within the boundaries of reproach, and in a great deal so. So sorry. We cannot absolve these companies, neither can we absolve them. In fact, I would argue
We cannot
she went to
absolve
these
them.
companies knowing very well that,
That they could.
That they could do it.
That they do
But
these
at the
things.
same time,
You
I'm
didn't just go
saying-
to any kind of run-of-the-mill
I'm
shack
saying-
underwater
I'm saying
kind of.
some
You
of
went
these-
to
some
some
of
of the
these-
best in the business because you know they probably they have done it before, and once you present to them this green note, they will do it again. And so they are not above reproach. When we look at it here, the investigations and only her name, only her will be called, and herself and her husband in terms of what they've been done. No. Others were also responsible. One held the spoon, the other held the knife. One chopped as the other put onions in the oil. All of them were there together. One cannot be released, and the other one and the other one now has to face the fire. No. And I'm saying that every time. Look, from Nigeria to South Africa to Egypt, when you look at economic crimes that people have been called out for, where they go and store their money, you will find that there's a firm or there's a company who was working
or
with
a
them
government.
every single time. Every
But
time we talk
bear
about
in mind,
we talk
when
about
we
the
talk
Swiss
about-
government
when
all
we
the
talk
time.
about
Did
tax
they not accept
havens,
the money? Yeah.
Each of these big countries in the West they all have their own tax havens.
Yes, they do.
Yes, so it's part of the system. So this lie that now, you see, I'm looking at it differently. Isabella dos Santos did what every other rich person in the West did at some point, or their grandparent or great-grandparent did. The only thing is that time has erased some of these things. Time isn't on her side, unfortunately. This is the 21st century, and everything can be recorded, and everything can be brought to book, and there is actually nowhere you can hide.
And you won't come and tell us that you worked hard and sold eggs on the
and
streets.
thirdly, you're African.
Yeah, you won't come and tell us that you sold eggs because she said that, you know what?
But she sold eggs.
I beg, leave that thing, Joe. She came and said, look,
why
at some
don't
point,
we throw in chicken into it? Because you actually can't have
The
extra
mother and the
chickens.
eggs.
do you understand how many eggs you need to sell to make $1 million?
To make the first 1,000?
1 million? No, shillings.
To make the
Don't
first
even-
1,000?
Do you know how
first
many
1,000,
eggs
and then first
you
1
need
million?
to sell?
Yeah.
The egg story is all good and well,
But
and
it's pointing
she may
to the
have done
fact.
some
It's pointing
business,
to the
yes.
fact that when they began to ask questions, especially with the current president, Laurencio. He's asking, "Okay, tell us then, where did this money go?" And we're going to point our fingers back to you. It's just like here in Kenya, cabinet reshuffle, somebody gets sacked, and then we're going to start asking you, "Okay, all this money, where did it go?"
Let's retrace the
Let's
steps.
retrace steps and figure out where did it go. Because I'm dealing with a situation. Look at my people in Angola. I'm dealing with a situation and questions that I'm unable to answer. So then the investigation starts. And then what did she say? As a lot of people say, this investigation is politically motivated.
It is, though.
Okay?
Yes, it is.
Be that as it may, does it take away from the fact that you got this money and you're not able to answer for it? Now, when asked about where her wealth came from, is when she came up with this chicken and egg story.
She starts. She started from the very beginning. How did I get, myself into entrepreneurship? I started at an early age. The same way people will ask them. And they
6.
tell
She
you,
did-
yeah,
somebody who
I
went to
was
school in the
selling
UK.
Cookies, I was selling cookies to my classmates in school. She says at 6 years old, our father started teaching us how to get into business, start thinking of business, right? That time they were living in exile, remember? So they come back and this is how they were living. This is what they happened. So I learned how to sell eggs. And then at some point we came back to Angola and, my father had an affair with another woman. My mother moved on to the UK. I studied there. When I was studying, I had a lot of interest in business and business-related courses. In fact, she trained as an engineer. She graduated as an engineer. She's called Engineer Dos Santos Isabella. She's basically just giving her life story. It's
You're
only that you people,
you're a fantastic
people
proponent for
want
her
to pick.
boohoo story. Unfortunately,
I'm just looking at it from where was she coming from when she started telling the story of the chicken and eggs? It's from
because she had to give a
where did
reason
you
as to
start?
why they're being asked where her money has come
Where
from.
did you start? How did you? It's like
Isabella
how did you
should-
know?
Isabella should sack her advisors, and she should sack her spin doctors.
And her PR people all need to,
They're
because
all
clearly here,
they should go because that story could have been spun differently. One of the things that you do when you're caught in such a web which is clear, and the trail of where your money comes from, is you first of all return that money and say it's been misunderstood. And since I love my country, and I
Yeah.
mean well, let us set this thing straight. What are you saying? It is this one. Take.
Shika.
What else are you saying? take. Now let's have another conversation.
Admission of guilt and lands you in jail. my
No,
friend.
you're not admitting guilt.
You are.
You're
No,
not
you're
admitting
not.
guilt. You're just saying,
Liability, whatever.
because here you are. Because now the country is able.
No, it's
they're
not
saying
guilt.
that here we don't have money, and for some reason they're linking the fact that they don't have this money. They're not able to sort out their people. It's because you and your family at some point bled the country dry. So we have
okay.
not proved any of that, right?
No,
We're
no,
saying,
it's an
is that what
accusation,
you're saying?
but
The
Eric,
problem is, oh yeah, here, take.
I know.
Take this money. That's what you're
That-
saying.
that's
The
what you're
problem is.
complaining about.
That's what you're complaining about. Take the money
Is there
before we
anything
talk
else that
about
you're complaining
anything
about?
else.
Ours is different from the other people who we've seen. Children of military or political
How?
leaders in Africa.
Explain this
right?
to us, please.
For example, there's one I forget which country it is, where the son of a former president or current president is under investigation. Has Lamborghinis, is living a lavish
this West
lifestyle.
African,
Where is this? Yeah, some West
yes,
African
yes,
country,
yes.
right?
And
This is
and that
of-
country is also poor
Same.
To the hills.
But you can see these children and how their lifestyle is. You can basically ask them, come on, what are you doing? How have you gotten your wealth? They cannot show you one single enterprise that they're running where they're making their money from. It's different from Isabella.
No, it's not.
Different from Isabella in this way. Isabella has businesses, has going concerns. I have started this
Eric,
business.
Eric,
Yes, you can say
400
this.
companies and their subsidiaries in 49 countries.
And what's wrong with having 400 companies?
How
Are
did
those
she
400
get
companies?
the money
No, no.
to start?
Actually, we know how she got the money. It's been documented. It is clear.
Yeah.
How she became CEO of that oil company, whatever profits were made, how
She
it
got the
is she
contract
was
for the
allowed to only
telecoms.
pay 15%,
15% of a loan.
and the rest was paid for, and how she was paid $1 billion. And all those are documented. It's in the public domain. I don't know of any business that is run along those lines. None whatsoever. None. Think of any big business. None. Profits are cumulative. Huge chunks.
Once,
billion.
boom.
Up.
You land a business.
Even
Friends,
the
the
people
com-
who are
Microsoft-
even
Your-
the-
your
even
com-
the people-
Your
Microsoft
country.
have entered the trillion mark in terms of sales, ownership, cumulative. Observe, I'm using the word cumulative.
Yep.
There aren't very many companies
Companies
that
of that
have-
sort.
Yes, there are probably 3 or 4. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is this: how Isabella acquired her money is not unique. There are many people on this planet who are rich. That's how they acquired the money. Even in this country, some of the richest people are rich because they did business with the government.
Yeah.
Others just simply stole from the government.
Yeah.
All right. So Isabella isn't
And
alone.
those two are
If it's
different.
it's
People who have done business with government are different from people who have stolen from the government.
You will find that a
Now,
lot
you
of
may say
similarities
that
run
in
through.
some cases,
Actually,
Isabella is a combination of both, but it's a father who was stealing her she was doing business with.
The father stole and gave her. So as a result of the fact that he stole and
she's an
gave you,
accomplice,
she's an
Baba.
accomplice, my dear.
That's all just misdemeanor. Misdemeanor. 9:30. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're discussing Isabella dos Santos, Africa's richest woman, who's now under the spotlight and the investigation in her own country and globally because of how she acquired her wealth. This has been started by the current president of Angola, who has said, let's revisit. We shall revisit. It's actually happening. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and the conversation continues. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, looking a little bit better wherever you're looking around the city today. Of course, we still have some bottlenecks on the roads. Unfortunately, Mombasa Road, we saw quite the problem this morning, but that is evening out. Langata Road, it's a showdown at the Galleria, unfortunately. It's still not happening this morning. It has become quite unbearable. We don't know what the rest of the week is going to look like, but this is what we are faced with right now. Langata Road seems to be the one that is serving up the negative vibes this morning, unfortunately. Coming off Thika Road, definitely not so so bad right now. It's much better. Of course, we still have the little problem that we had around James Gishuru in Westlands. That's because everybody is avoiding bad roads inward in Lavington. All right, so it seems that all eyes are on Langata Road and asking what the problem is. Of course, we know that there were 2 accidents up further up the road, and this is why we see what we see down there now. Other than that, it's looking good in other parts. Spice FMKE. Find us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We'll spread the word.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Now, let's also look at Ms. Dos Santos' husband, who also is being called out in some of these things, right? His name is Sindika Dokolo, and he signed a one-sided agreement in 20...
Is that his real name?
Yes, Sindika Dokolo. Yeah, he's
Mabokoli Kolo.
That's his real name. He's called
Carry on.
Right. So he signed a one-sided agreement in 2012 with the Angolan state company, diamond company Sodium. There was supposed to be a 50-50 partnership in a deal to buy a stake in the Swiss luxury jeweler de Grisgogno. But it was funded by the state company. You get this now?
$120 million later,
they funded it.
The company went broke.
Under. Right? The
Yep.
state funded this 50-50 agreement completely. Now, Isabella went to Daddy and basically said, look, my husband and I were trying to do this business. Daddy said, okay, no problem. Go ahead, give them. We will see some kind of benefit for the people of Angola. Again, $120 million later, no profit, no nothing. Diamonds in the hand of Sindika Dokolo and his wife. The former president also gave Miss Santos' husband, notice how he's being referred to as Miss Santos' husband, the right to buy...
In the absence of being her husband, he's
a nobody.
He's just another Congo man.
There you go. Now, gave him the right to buy some of Angola's new diamonds. The Angolan government says the diamonds were sold at a knockdown price, and sources have told this investigative piece that almost $1 billion may or may not have been lost. She said that she could not comment about this particular case because she was not a shareholder of the Swift.
That is Dongolo issue. I mean, why are you asking me about
husband?
Yeah, no. Just because he's my husband. This is
However,
a private citizen.
The leaked documents show that she is described as a shareholder by her own financial advisors, who are whom? PwC and KPMG. Do you see? Okay. Do you see what we're talking about? $100 billion
actually
lost.
What is
that could have gone to the people of Angola.
What is more important is that notice to all Kenyan thieves and plunderers of government resources: don't use PwC.
They are not the big firms.
These guys are not reliable.
They're not nice people.
No, they'll sell you.
They'll sell you properly.
Sell you out.
Who are the other guys who
They're not loyal.
KPMG.
Oh, no, those guys also.
The big four,
sell
they
you
are
out.
not loyal. They look...
Interestingly enough, PwC has now terminated its relationship with the billionaire and her family after questions came about the way the company had assisted her in the deals that made her rich. So come, if what you're doing is so squeaky clean, they come and ask you 1-2 questions and you're rattled and you say, come on, auntie, we're not doing again. Thank you very much. What we have been able to receive from you, we receive, but we are done.
Yeah.
Severed all relationship. If what you're doing is so squeaky clean, why are you not still with her? You've jumped ship now. All the rats are scampering because the ship is sinking and all the rats are scampering.
There's no new business coming. The business has dried. So, I mean, why
the business is not dry.
Why maintain an account that is not going to be serviced as well as it was being serviced before? It's clear.
According to PwC, again, another sing-song, We strive to maintain the highest professional standards, and we've set expectations for consistent ethical behavior across our global network. And this is what they now said after they were asked one or two questions.
So is your beef with the audit companies, the big companies, the advisory firms, or is your beef with Dos Santos, or is your
Everybody.
beef with
Everybody.
the father,
Everybody.
Jose Eduardo?
All of
Is
them.
your beef with the Angolan people?
No,
is your
my beef
with the
actually
West?
is for the Angolan people, because here there is a direct relation between the money that they stole, Dos Santos and Sindicolo, the money that they stole, the money that her father stole and gave to them, whatever it is that they did.
The father
that
didn't
could
need
have-
to steal it, by
He
the way.
just took it and gave them.
No,
Right.
He was El Presidente.
Yeah, so he just said, baby, take. And that was it.
You see, the thing, this is typical of Africa's strongmen and strongmen also on the planet. They actually think they own the country. And they behave as though they own the country. And they behave as though they own the people. So everything they say actually becomes an edict, and it is the law. So the president, Eduardo Dos Santos, didn't steal a thing. How could he steal from himself?
From himself. He just took it and gave it to his daughter.
And he gave his daughter these things which were his.
So now all these things that we talk about, we give them big names: misappropriation of funds.
No, in such a situation, there was
There's
no
nothing like that.
misappropriation.
It's just taking and giving.
That is his property, as were the people of that particular country. All right? But to conform with international standards, they call it a democracy. All right? Just call it a democracy.
Yeah, and then
then
it's okay.
and then go on with business.
I see where
As
you're having
usual.
beef with the Big Four and the other companies. I'm having beef with these pretentious foreign governments, Western
Yes.
governments.
Oh, me too. I take
Because
issue with them because
for
then
all
they're
these
coming
years,
finger
they
pointing
could see
Hypocritical
what
is
is
the
yes,
word.
finger pointing activities where in your backyard, your people, your companies, your firms are actually at the forefront of helping secure and safeguard some of this wealth that
Your
has been
governments
stolen.
are actually doing this because which governments are buying this oil from these countries and the diamond? Who's trading with this country? The people who are trading, the countries that are trading with Angola
With
and
these
seeing
individuals-
exactly what's happening,
individuals
these
actually.
individuals in these countries,
Yeah.
and seeing that these people are coming to invest in our capitals, in our cities, in our companies, bringing all that cash out of Angola into our economies, and you just sat back. And even now, you're quiet.
And you know what? The African narrative is going to be spun very well. Watch and see. Because in the event that this woman, I was going to say young woman, but okay. In the event that she should go down, it'll be another spin. You see? Anything that comes out of Africa that can be rich, wealthy, has to come as a result of being stolen. It's not hard work, as
It's not
we would
hard
say.
work.
It's not hard work. They actually have to steal
And
in order
all
to be
African leaders are
influential.
despots and thieves.
But at some point,
and
when
the
she
people
was
of
actually
Africa do not have power to choose a right leader.
or don't even have the work ethic ingrained in them. They just feel that they have to steal. That is going to be the narrative that is going to be spun out of such a thing. Meanwhile, when she was amassing all this wealth and stepping up the ladder, she was actually touted as one of, most influential, hardworking,
By Western
richest,
media.
By Western media,
Being
yet again.
invited to the London, School of Business
To give a speech about how entrepreneurship and how you can actually succeed. Talking to young women about how you can actually make a name for yourself by hard work. What are we talking about? Again, we're going to see a narrative spun that will say, again, Africans, in order for them to become rich, they must steal.
Actually, to understand this, there is a company, Londro. Londro Africa, as it's called. Right? A one-time Prime Minister of the UK, Edward Heath, actually called it the unacceptable face of capitalism. But that's what he said publicly. But if you look at articles that have been written and research that has been done on this, the British government even then cooperated with people like Londro to conduct their business. Now, what Londro was known for was they openly exploited whatever opportunities they had on this continent. But what they did was they did it hand in glove with the leadership.
Yes.
Whatever country they went into, for instance, they would ensure that whatever enterprise they had, either a nephew or a son or someone close to the leader of that country was given such a position. And it would move from one president to the other. It didn't matter who became president. If I was president today, someone close to me would be given some senior position as CEO of Londro operations or what they call executive chairman with perks and everything. It worked very well for them. So if you ask me, your anger is very well directed. But insofar as it's something to be angry about, but as also something to be understood. The duplicity with which many of these Western countries actually function and operate on our continent is not something you should waste energy being annoyed about. It's something you should focus your energy on understanding. Because if you don't understand it, they'll keep doing the same thing because they'll metamorphosize. Right now, we had this Africa-UK conference.
Right.
Yes.
What on earth do you think that is? It is spinning this whole thing. I was listening to BBC and I was listening to the talk around it. Nice spin.
Very nice.
No, nice spin.
How's it being fun?
What I disliked about it was a bit patronizing. Yes, because they said, well, this is one of these things where they're trying to help African countries alleviate poverty. I said, what?
Towards development and such,
I,
right.
I was listening well. When they got to that point, I said, this narrative again.
They are helping African countries alleviate poverty.
Levels of poverty. I thought, you people don't have enough problems of your own.
Yeah.
You don't have enough people who don't have jobs. You don't have people who, you don't have enough. Have you solved all your problems to come and solve ours? This is the narrative that has always been used in getting us into a position where they can come in and then exploit. Same narrative helping us.
Yeah.
We can help ourselves, thank you.
Just like God will help us.
We actually can. And if we were not that important to you, you wouldn't be giving us this narrative of wanting to help us.
Right, there you go. And that's I think we come now
It's a quid
to...
pro quo.
Yeah, of
There's
course we come
something
to
that
Angola.
you're getting from us.
Like you said, there are other countries where, influential or, people in the presidency whose children are doing ridiculous things when it comes to the countries. But how much attention? We're looking at every major world media right now is focusing on Isabella dos Santos.
Yeah.
If Angola did not have diamonds, if Angola did not have oil, if Angola did not have the resources that she has, do you think this kind of attention would be given in terms of
they
what
wouldn't
she was?
care.
No, they wouldn't care.
And one of the
Let's
reasons
just be
why
honest.
one of the reasons why this happened for so long is because of the resources that they had. It assured because of allowing them to stay in power and allowing them to do what they were doing, assured them those Western countries that they could benefit from the resources in those countries. We can access the diamonds because we have our friend Jose Eduardo there. We can access the oil because we have our friend. These people are good. In fact, she's educated in the UK. She's a UK educated. She's not a backward person. She grew up here. We know her very well. She's an engineer. She has an engineering degree from the UK. She's a very good person. In fact, Forbes writes an article about her.
And voila.
She becomes Africa's richest woman. And we have stories about her. She is even invited to go and give talks on how helping young entrepreneurs in the UK, in Paris, in Portugal, telling them how to start a business and how to maintain a business. And yet you know very well exactly how she's making her money. Surely, these are jokes. Open up the phone lines now. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. What are your perspectives on this? What are you discussing? This is Isabella dos Santos, Africa's richest woman, who is now under the spotlight because it emerges that all this wealth that she claims to have had actually belongs to the people of Angola. It was, to put it plainly, stolen from the people of Angola and given to Isabella dos Santos, or stolen directly by Isabella dos Santos, as some reports are indicating. At quarter to 10, we are opening up the phone line, 0719 012 600. Also post your comment on Facebook and Twitter at SpiceFMKE. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. .1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Phone lines again, 0719 and 012600.
There's a gentleman who many Kenyans may not know. Tiny Rowlands was his name. At the height of his power, this gentleman died in 1998. He owed many, many interests on this particular continent. And what I said earlier on by him ensuring that he did business with the leaders of government, specifically, he went directly to the president, not just leaders. For instance, when Jomo Kenyatta was president of Kenya, a gentleman by the name of Ngegi Muigai was considered and was the CEO of Londro interests in this country. When President Moi became president, it was Mark To who became the CEO of Londro companies. South Africa, where Londro owns many huge platinum mines, or owned, or what remains of it, the person who's a majority shareholder in those mines was Cyril Ramaphosa, who is now the president of South Africa. So one could argue that the influence of someone like Tiny Rowlands actually never went anywhere.
Yep. And it wasn't his own influence. It was like he must have been backed by governments.
Yes. A company such as Londro could not have grown and become as massive as it was if Her Majesty's government didn't give it some nod.
Yes. Going to the phone lines. Roderick, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Roderick.
How are you?
Good.
Actually, my dad worked at London.
Bring it home, Roderick.
Are you Roderick?
Which one? On some of the tea plantations?
Maybe the
In
chairman.
Eldoret,
Are you Roderick Tall?
But anyway, the thing is, let's just bring this topic back home.
Yes.
The thing is, we know that some of our leaders have put a lot of money in the offshore accounts, billions and billions. I thought it was estimated at around $150 billion owned by Kenyan politicians abroad. And if that says right, I think Uhuru Kenyatta said that he will pay those monies will be paid by the end of the year. The debts that this country was 70%. If the last speech I heard, I hope I didn't hear badly. He said that he will pay. So is he trying to plan to bring those monies back or what? Let's just bring this topic out home. Yes, Dos Santos, we have very many small Isabel Dos Santos here in the country. And we should be discussing about them.
We should be looking at them as well.
Who did you have in mind, Roderick? Who did you have in mind? Some of the small Isabellas.
Abroad are enough to pay our debt and put this country into a second world country in less than 10 years.
If we just bring it back.
If I'm not wrong, if the figures are correct, it was around $150 billion. I don't know if that's the correct info.
Stashed in foreign bank accounts.
In foreign countries, yeah.
We will look into it just now and say
you trying to help us to get those monies back.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Should we discuss about even these small Isabels we have around?
Yes, we can. As I said, who did you have in mind? We actually can.
We can.
Oh, yes, we can.
I think we know those guys who owe us money. You know, every person who have looted money. Some of them even caught at the airport in fact, going to deposit them in Dubai and whatever.
And other places.
And other places. We know these people.
Yep.
Let's not lie to ourselves. And they have been there in the system, and they are making sure that they come into power each and every year to protect their interests. And they are well.
To protect one another. Thank you very much, Roderick. Asante, have a good day. 0719 012 600.
Yeah,
Small Isabellas in Kenya.
Small Isabellas in Kenya, but then of course looking at the impact that, just where we are now, if looking at now, her accounts have been frozen, and then suddenly this is where everybody wants to speak about her accounts, and some of her businesses actually have been stopped in terms of operations. So obviously that tells you something that yes, they were still making money and they were still buoyant in terms of then what they were able to do in more amassing of wealth. Now again, I come and say, look at where we've seen now. PwC, who helped her over the last 20 years,
Yeah.
have absolved themselves from all of this. KPMG at this point, not talking. Some of the other firms that definitely helped, because she didn't just sit and do this alone. She was advised, she was supported, she was buffered all along. But they've now seen that, okay, this is going to get us in some trouble, folks, and they've removed themselves from the equation. She's now going to have to answer on her own. She didn't do it by herself, but now the gallows are falling on her, So it's clear that, again, I say the narrative is going to be spun in a totally different way. And why does it have to be that way? And then we come back to this whole, again, hustler narrative about how you were able to do it by hard work. And that was not the case. And then, of course, the people who helped you along the way have left you to be eaten up by the dogs, which is going to happen. This is going to happen. And interestingly enough, Laurencio is not going to conduct this investigation on his own as Angola. He is going to call in other powers who are going to be able to help to stick it to her. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
So they'll just basically throw her under the bus, knowing full well that they supported her.
Oh, yes. And
all along,
and I
you
think
cannot amass $2 billion worth of wealth
by yourself.
You must have been supported not just internally, but also externally. And everybody is going to throw her under the bus. How unfortunate.
She's going to go down as that. She will not be remembered as Africa's richest woman. She will then be remembered as
Why is it unfortunate?
I mean,
it's
in this
unfortunate
case,
because she's the only one going under the bus.
No.
Everybody else who supported her is going to...
They're going to come out squeaky clean.
No.
Yeah, they'll come out squeaky.
No.
They will support the
Who
next.
is accusing her and which court is she going to be taken to?
She's been accused. The
Yes.
investigations.
Which court is she going to be taken to?
She's being accused
Local.
by the Angolan government.
I've understood that, but which court is she going to be taken to?
Local Angolan courts.
Which means the UK will likely extradite her. Is that what you're saying? This I want to see.
Because she currently resides in the UK.
Yep.
Of course, if she's summoned, she will be asked to come to Angola to answer these charges.
There's something else that we're forgetting in this equation. When someone has that amount of money, they can buy a lot of assistance.
Yes.
They can buy very expensive lawyers. They can do all sorts of things.
Which she already has.
Yes, so it's a PR team who she should sack. Because if you have been involved in this sort of crimes, you really need to have some really clever people who can make this crime look like it wasn't one. Okay? Hers will be difficult because the poverty of the Angolans you cannot wish away.
You cannot wish it away.
You can't wash it away. You can't. There's very little you can do about it. But the truth of the matter is, Isabella is not. She is just the face of something that very many people on this continent have done. The reason why I brought in Londro actually ran businesses that were viable, and the business that our caller said his father. They were not the face of bad business. They were just the face of business. They employed people. They were in the tea sector. They were in the property sector. They were in the hospitality sector. They were a business conglomerate.
Yes.
Now, if she had done this very same thing in her country, one could have said, they own this, they're employing this, they've done this.
She would say that.
Yes, she would. But there's nothing to show for it in her
No,
country.
This is unfortunate. That's the thing. There's nothing to show
When you talk about
at
like
home.
like the telecoms licenses, she operates those telecom companies in that country. Same. Employing people. They're actually legit businesses running in the country. It's only that you're saying that the license was awarded to you.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I am saying it's for the exploitation. Because if you used your position of authority in this way, I think I don't really need to spell out what it is that you've actually done. And if there was good that she had done, don't you think her PR team would have been the first?
They would have used those as glaring
They would have said,
examples.
but
Of,
what
look
are
at
these
what
ones
we've done
about?
for the country.
Those ones have been done.
Like which one, Eric?
Which ones?
Eric, which one?
Not in this particular
Which one?
drama. Not in the current drama, but getting to a point where she's even being propped as this, what we know, Africa's richest woman.
No, but in terms of what she's done for the people
What
of
she has done
Uganda,
and all
of
those things.
Angola.
Eric,
If you look
usually-
back, if you look back at
usually-
those stories, if you look back at those stories that are written about her before this issue started unfolding, you will find very many positives. And that's what I was telling you. You will find serious positive stories, not just in local media, but in international media. Serious positive. She was propped so well as Africa's richest woman.
Yes, that's what we're saying. But
Africa's
unfortunately,
very
the
intelligent,
situation on the
very
ground is that
hardworking,
Angolans are
very
dirt poor.
No, it's not just a question. You know,
But
people,
the point was the PR
Look,
worked at that
The
point.
PR worked
when
at that point.
Kipchoge, when Eliud Kipchoge broke the, what was it, 2 hour?
A sub 2 hour marathon.
Exactly.
Right.
The company, Enos, are they called Enos? They had been involved in some rather unpleasant publicity. And there are those people who argued that this was the way out of it.
They use it
They
to clean it up.
sponsored this to clean it up so that they show that they're sponsoring something good. What do our banks do, or our CEOs of banks who earn the sort of money that probably, in terms of bonuses, that probably half the employees, if the sum total of half the employees in that particular bank, well, I'm being facetious here.
They do some CSR there.
They do. Why? They suddenly provide bursaries for 200 needy students. They suddenly do this for the other. Everyone involves themselves in some
good.
Well, activities that are supposed to represent some
good.
Yes.
It's the common way that one goes about it. So even as we are questioning certain things, you can point at certain things. What are these positive things we can point about Isabella?
Just look back.
Just for
I'm
if
telling
we're
you,
just even
ask
sticking
Google.
within the boundaries
Ask
of
Google.
Angola.
I am telling you.
Then why are we looking at such
2015
glaring?
because
Why are we
what
looking
you have,
at such glaring
what you have
poverty
now
in
is,
Uganda?
No, glaring,
in Angola. Why are we looking at why a president is going to be able to draw parallels between what has been bled and what the people are going through?
She did not work at alleviating poverty and all those things, but the PR, the image was that she was doing all those things. The same thing that City
so
is
it was
talking
a lie.
about. It's the same thing that City is talking about. Yes, you give 1 or 2% of your vast wealth back to charity. 1 or 2% or 0.5%
means nothing.
Means nothing. But at that point, the PR was actually showing that she has given out 100 million shillings here. She has done 500,000 shillings worth of stuff here. This and the other. It worked at that point. And even now, wait and see. Wait and see. In just a couple of months, you'll start seeing a clean-up image of Isabella dos Santos globally.
If she makes it, with the investigations that are going on.
She will make it. Out of this, she will make it.
Again, I have to say that your affinity for this boohoo story of hers is actually quite impressive.
Well, one of the things she did, which was noted at the UN, she talked about empowering women.
Yeah,
she
definitely.
Worked on those programs.
She said that quite a lot.
Empowering women, working on entrepreneurs, on the youth.
In the UK.
Giving them advice.
In the
and all
UK.
Those things. Where?
In the UK.
Where? Go and find out.
I'm actually looking at it. That's
the
whole point.
Let's conclude.
In the United Kingdom.
Let's conclude the show for the day.
Let the discussions continue.
Well, join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember to join Monique at 3 o'clock, 3 to 7 with Spice Drive. And then the adults in the room will be back today from 7 to 10. This is Eric, Emmanuel, and Barbara, the Duchess of Ikolomani. We're back here from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock discussing various issues. Find out what they'll be discussing today. See you again tomorrow. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.